everybody. Thanks so much. I believe in all of you, and I am confident we can do it. Thank you very much. I have just come from Buckingham Palace, where I have accepted His Majesty the King's invitation to form a government. I know people at home are fed up with politics. I hear you, and I want to be honest with you. We have not been good enough, and we need to be better. We will be.
This man has no mandate whatsoever. He didn't stand on the 2024 general election manifesto. You cannot make the biggest change in British politics in 40 years without a mandate from the British people, and it will be only decent, right and proper to call a general election on that issue and to do it now.
Our fifth Prime Minister in 4 years. Blimey. And, well, look, we want him to succeed. But will this one be any different? Andy Burnham, the new head honcho, the speed this all happened, I know this is a well-trodden debate already, is actually breathtaking. 1 minute he was Mayor of Greater Manchester. What, a month and a bit ago he wasn't even an MP. The next he's holding keys to number 10 without the country ever really having a chance to scrutinise him in a prospective prime ministerial arena. Nothing at all. We really know very little.
I think Burnham has to walk a fine line. I think that's probably what's going on, because if he were to sweep into Downing Street and say, I'm going to change everything, I'm going to fix everything.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side, this is Talk.
Very good evening. This is the Evening Exchange. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much for your company. I'm slightly confused about what Andy Burnham wants, because he says yesterday that it's impossible to deal with PC Andrew Harper's killers and to keep them behind bars for longer. Now he says he'll do everything in his power and he hopes that it can happen. Well, can it or can it not? We'll get into all of that and what prison officers, they're up in arms at the moment because they don't know exactly what's going on. They're being given mixed messages by the government. Similarly, the Prime Minister is talking about high streets. He says he wants to get rid of the scourge of vape shops and garish signs and let people take more control and indeed ownership of their high streets. At the same time, he says that middle-class people in middle-class areas need to take their fair share, as he puts it, of asylum seekers. What do you make of that? He's on a national tour and he's talking to people up and down the country. What would you like to say to him? And do you think it is reasonable for your area to take asylum seekers? Why doesn't he just deal with the problem in the first place rather than lecturing people about people coming to their areas? Whatever you want to say, however you want to say it, 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. We're going to speak in a second to the national chairman of the Prison Officers Association as well. There's a lot to talk about in regard to our prisons and PC Andrew Harper and others. Whatever you want to say, however you want to say it, as I say, 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a WhatsApp voice note, less than a minute please. You can send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. Loads to talk about this Tuesday evening on the Evening Exchange here on Talk. So Andy Burnham says he is confident more can be done to stop the early release of PC Harper's killers. He says he wants to work to increase space in the prison system to allow the prevention of the early release of serious offenders. But can he actually do that? And are mixed messages being given? Because yesterday we were told it wasn't possible. That, in the view of the Conservative Chris Philp, is re-traumatising victims and their families with their constant U-turns. That is what Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, says. PC Harper's mother, Debbie Adlam, has done some interviews today. She said she was in turmoil following conflicting reports about whether two of her son's killers will be released from prison early, describing the handling of the situation as a hash. And what about the people on the ground, the prison officers you're dealing dealing with that. We'll speak to the Prison Officers Association chairman in just a second. Let's hear what Andy Burnham has said today on PC Harper's killer's release.
I've heard the depth of concern felt across the country about the potential release of the killers of PC Andrew Harper, and obviously I feel for the family and the anguish that they're going through. What I have done since I came into office is push the system every single day to go further. I've not accepted it's impossible to do more. I believe there is more that can be done. So today I have asked the Justice Secretary to present a plan in early September to Parliament to go further so that we do not have to release as many people early. And that plan will include issues like returning more foreign national offenders to their country of origin, and looking at the injustice of IPP sentences, which have led to young people, or young when they were imprisoned, being imprisoned indeterminately, and that clearly is unfair.
Today as well, the Prime Minister was talking about vapes, bookies, high streets. We'll talk about this a little bit later in the programme, but let me just tell you right now what the Prime Minister has said on this.
There's a real concern across the country, I felt it in the Makerfield by-election, about high streets that have been hollowed out, particularly in former industrial areas. They just have been in decline for a long time. And I want to give local communities the power to turn things around. And that means clamping down on some of the businesses that cause harm in communities, and then supporting those that bring life back to our high street. So we are announcing big changes today to give communities more control over planning when it comes to vape shops, adult gaming centres, and also the proliferation of betting shops by removing the aim to permit.
The Prime Minister speaking earlier today on part of his nationwide tour. What do you think of what he said? 0344 499 1000. He does say, though, he's confident PC Andrew Harper's killers can be excluded from the government's early release scheme. He's ordered the Justice Secretary, as we heard there, Alex Norris, to find a way to bar Jesse Cole and Albert Bowers, who were jailed for 13 years for manslaughter in 2020, from early release. Let's speak to the chairman of the Prison Officers Association, Mark Fairhurst. Mark, thank you for joining us on the programme. What do you think is going to happen here? Because we're definitely getting mixed messages, and it's frustrating for me as a journalist sitting in a nice warm studio. I can only imagine how frustrating this debacle is for your officers on the front line, dealing with prisoners, dealing with people, not just Jesse Cole and Albert Bowers, but thousands of people who are questioning, when am I going to get out? When's this going to happen? Do you agree with Debbie Adlam, PC Andrew Harper's mother, who said the situation is a hash?
It is. I've always been confident that we can create additional capacity to bar those convicted of manslaughter from early release. And what this does on the front line, obviously preparations are ongoing now because of this legislation to calculate people's release dates in October. If this further restriction goes ahead, that means that we have to tell prisoners that they're no longer eligible for release, with all the frustrations and anger that brings. And of course, it heaps extra pressure on those staff working in offender management units who have to recalculate everybody's sentence.
So those people, those prisoners who think, I might be getting out in October or before Christmas or whenever, may well be told, actually, no, government's decided, changed its mind, you're not getting out. Many people outside the walls of prisons will be quite glad about that, but for the prison officers that you represent, they'll be on the inside of those prisons doing the job, dealing with that frustration, anger, violence perhaps?
Yeah, and that's the issue, isn't it? Because we are the front line and we bear the brunt of people's frustrations and anger, even though we have absolutely nothing to do with these decisions. So I would say to prisoners who maybe are expecting to get released, if it doesn't come about, then just keep your head, do your time, keep your head down, and eventually you will get out. You'll get released early anyway. It just won't be as early as you think. It doesn't bode well if you react adversely, because you'll just get longer on your sentence.
I want to talk about them when they get out in a minute or two when it comes to probation officers threatening to strike amid an early release crisis. We'll get to that in a second. But when it comes to additional capacity, you said that would be an easy thing to find. How would you find that additional capacity? What would your solution be? If the Ministry of Justice gave you a ring and said, Mark, do you know what, we need space for another 5,000 prisoners, how are you going to find that in your view?
Well, I think the easy win for Andy Burnham, and nobody's mentioned this at the moment, even though I consistently mention it, is to triage the remand population. I think it's sitting between 16 and 17,000 prisoners. Not everybody on remand will be accused of the most serious offences. Maybe we could triage them, and the low-risk offenders we could give an ankle tag to and enforce restrictions on them in their homes and monitor them electronically. That's an easy win. And as that's how I can see it. I mean, the foreign national thing, you have to have the permission of the country of origin to repatriate them. You have to actually know which country they are from. If they come here undocumented, you don't know. It is a complex issue, but the easy win for me is to triage the remand population and, of course, those prisoners serving an indeterminate prison sentence who are years over their tariff. They can't all be at risk to the public. We could monitor them electronically and create even further capacity. So I'm confident that's an easy win.
When you look at what Reform UK is saying, it's saying we should send foreign criminals either back to their home country or to El Salvador. Now, the Labour Party and the government says that that is something that's unworkable. It would take years. But do you think it is workable, even if it does take years? Do you think it's a solution that we could look to in the future?
No, I think it's totally unworkable. We've tried this in the past with Rwanda, and all that you'll face as a government if you try these schemes is continuous human rights battles with lawyers who will drag you through the courts. And we never sent anyone back. You know, it's very difficult now. We've been trying for years to repatriate people to their own countries. We've even given them financial incentives. We've got about half a dozen countries we've got agreements with, but most countries don't want their own criminals back. And furthermore, think about the victims. What happens if we repatriate someone who was serving a lengthy sentence in this country and then they land in their own country and walk free? That's not justice for anyone.
Yes, it's a very interesting point. When it comes to probation officers, they're threatening to strike amid the early release crisis. What do you think I mean, if you look at some of the numbers that they have talked to, they're thinking about voting, increasing the number of people managing the community, while probation is struggling to cope. This is another union, the Probation Officers Union, the NAPO, saying it should come as a government as it prepares to expand early release. The national chairman, Ben Cockburn, says this ballot wasn't about members being too busy. It was professionals warning they cannot protect the public property when there are not enough people to do the work.
Yeah, I don't blame them, and solidarity to them. I wish them all the best. If they do take industrial action, they're quite right. They're getting treated appallingly. They're not getting listened to. They are absolutely on their knees. They're struggling to cope with current workloads. And over the next 10 months, we're going to plan on dumping them an extra 5,000 offenders to monitor in our communities. Where are their resources coming from? They're burnt out.
Yeah, I mean, do you think this strike should go ahead? There's 90% of those who voted said they'd be willing to strike.
Well, on an indicative ballot, it's looking ominous. And I think if they balloted their membership over the next couple of months, they would get quite a substantial vote for in favour of strike action, or certainly industrial action. Even if they work to rule, that would have a knock-on effect, because they're at least working double their workloads at this moment in time, because they can't retain staff as much as we can't in the prison service.
So what is the solution here? What do you think needs to be done? You've talked about increasing capacity, but any increase in capacity will need an increase in officers as well. Where are those officers going to come from?
Well, we're not going to get officers on these new build prisons, and when we bring accommodation online, predominantly we rely on officers from all over the country to go on what's called detached duty at great expense to the taxpayer, people living away from their homes in hotels for sometimes months at a time to shore up regimes where we can't recruit. So this is a knock-on effect of everything. We need to improve wages, lower the ridiculous retirement age of prison officers to entice people into the job and to retain people. And it's the same for probation. They're so overworked, and they've got a lot of inexperience now because everybody's burnt out.
OK, listen, thank you very much indeed. Mark, just before you go, what would your message to Alex Norris be when it comes to this specific case of PC Harper's killers, when it comes to specifically to Jesse Cole and Albert Bowers? What do you think should happen?
Under no circumstances should they be released early. They have committed a serious offence. They should not be eligible for early release. And I'm waiting for an introductory meeting with our new Secretary of State for Justice, Mr. Norris. I welcome that meeting. If he sits down with me, I'll be frank with him, I'll be open with him, and I'll tell him what the solutions are. Stop listening to the bureaucrats in the MOJ who continuously get everything wrong.
Yeah, it's interesting. Danny Shaw, the Home Affairs commentator, says that excluding prisoners jailed for manslaughter for 10 years or more would leave only around 220 additional people behind bars. All it takes is imagination and political will. Do you agree with him?
Totally agree with that. It's all about political will, but the bureaucrats in the MOJ paint a totally different picture. And one thing I will say before we finish, Peter, is the bureaucrats have said that we'll be full if we don't take this action. Show us the statistics, show us the data, show us the modelling. Let's get it scrutinised by academics. Why are they so secretive over it?
OK. Thank you, Mark. Mark Fairhurst there, National Chairman of the Prison Officers Association. What do you make of what he said? 0344 499 1000. Let's hear a voice note from Vicky on early releases. The voice notes are coming in thick and fast. 0344 499 1000. Vicky has a voice note. This is what she says.
It's really quite simple. They want to free up prison spaces. Don't look people down for stupid messages on social media. 2, OK, it's not right. I don't condone it at all, but shoplifters, they're getting sentences. All right, they might be minor, but at the end of the day, people are in poverty. No need for locking people up like that. Anyone that does any harm to anyone, lock them up. Let's get rid of petty crimes. Tag them, put them on community service, get them on probation or whatever. Get rid of the illegals. Anyone that wasn't born here, I'm sorry, anyone that wasn't born here and have taken upon themselves to actually commit a crime, get rid.
Vicky, thank you. Gavlar says Burnham has no intention of stopping the boats. He's a champagne socialist who thinks he knows what's best for the little people. Saying he's going to spread the load by placing migrants in so-called middle-class areas is a clear sign it's business as usual from the government. Dee in Chesterfield says the Turkish barbers near us are proper barbers and do a great job. My son goes to them for the full service. God only knows what that is. If they're willing to scrape off all his fur at full moon, they're all right in my book. I also have, I don't think it's quite Turkish barber. My barber is certainly Iraqi and he is very, very good. The full service, I think I can tell you, Dee, is they do your, they shave your beard, your facial hair, cut your hair, thread your eyebrows, stick the wax up your nose and in your ears and get all the horrible little hairs out and all the rest of it. So in the hot towels and all the rest of it, I'm a big fan of all of that. You feel a new boy afterwards, let me tell you. Penny in Essex says, good evening, Peter. If these two abhorrent killers of Andrew Harper have early release, I think it will be the end of Burnham, and he probably knows that. He is totally ineffectual and already making Starmer look as if he did a good job, says Penny. Let's hear another voice note now from Helen on migrant housing. Here's Helen.
Oh, where do you start with it? Well, the thing is, nobody wants the illegal immigrants because that's what they are. Nobody wants them. The whole thing's getting worse. Andy Burnham needs to stop going on about his breakfast and all of that sort of stuff. We do not care. Deal with it. Listen to what people are saying. And what people are saying is none of us want them. We don't want your reasons why this area should have them or that one. None of us want them. Stop it.
Thank you, Helen, for that. We'll go to the debate desk in a second. Claire Muldoon will be with us, as will Sebastian Salek. We'll talk about this crisis in the prisons. We'll talk about our high streets. We'll also talk about Labour risking an election wipeout unless it actually improves the high streets. Maybe that's why they're looking at it. And anti-Semitism towards Jewish children is shocking. There is one school head teacher who says he sometimes spends 90% of his week on security for the children he's educating and only 10% on their education. Also, the Labour peer urging the Tories to sack the former neo-Nazi who abused her, and why you apparently shouldn't be using your dishwasher between 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock tomorrow. We'll find out why. Stay with us here on Talk.
sex spaces on biological sex.
Yeah.
And therefore you cannot have people going into a women's space, which is for women only, who is not a biological woman.
I was wondering whether that interview was conducted on April Fool's Day, because I think it was a new low in the sort of...
A new low for low?
A new low for low, because, I mean, just the absurdity of not being able to ask a very basic question about the monarch of our country.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Charles has been in touch and says, surely about dinghies, the truth is that Labour will always drag their feet because they simply don't want to cut immigration. Everything else is a sham. John in Hinckley says, great show as ever, thank you. Burnham's comments that the middle classes should do their fair share in relation to illegal migrants is basically an admission of absorbing the problem instead of addressing the issue of stopping the boats. Burnham has revealed his true colours. He has no intention of stopping the invasion. Burnham is simply continuity Starmer. General election right now, says John. Well, if the polls are to be believed, Andy Burnham will win it. Ian in Essex says, I want to win the lottery tonight. I will buy a house in Gary Neville's Road and will turn it into a home of multiple occupancy, also next to Mr Burnham, says Ian in Essex. And Tristan says, time and time again, in the very short time this government has shown they are utterly useless. We have 12,000 foreign criminals. We have constant migrants coming here committing crimes. They need to grow a backbone. And any country who says they don't want the criminals back, tell them, OK, no foreign aid. We don't want them there or at all. Listen to the public. Well, certainly you were, I would imagine, Tristan, listening to Reform UK as well in their plan to send people to El Salvador. Let's hear, before we go to the debate desk, we'll just hear again what the Prime Minister has been saying, specifically on PC Andrew Harper's Killers release, because I want to hear what Sebastian Salek and Claire Muldoon have to say about that. And you as well, 0344 499 1000. Let's hear what the Prime Minister's been saying today.
I've heard the depth of concern felt across the country about the potential release of the killers of PC Andrew Harper, and obviously I feel for the family and the anguish that they're going through. What I have done since I came into office is push the system every single day to go further. I've not accepted it's impossible to do more. I believe there is more that can be done. So today I have asked the Justice Secretary to present a plan in early September to Parliament to go further so that we do not have to release as many people early. And that plan will include issues like returning more foreign national offenders to their country of origin and looking at the injustice of IPP sentences which have led to young people, or young when they were imprisoned, being imprisoned indeterminately, and that clearly is unfair.
Lots to discuss in all of that. Let's go to the debate desk now. Claire Muldoon is with me, as is Sebastian Salek, political commentators. Both lovely to see you. Both nice to see you. What do you make of what Andy Burnham is saying here? We seem to be getting mixed messages, Sebastian, don't we, about he's confident of the early release. He's said to the Justice Secretary he wants to make it happen. We've also heard that it can't happen yesterday from the Prime Minister's official spokesman. What's going on here?
It's an interesting comm strategy, isn't it? To say that you're confident you can do something before you've done it. Well, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? But he's certainly set the expectations very high and he's going to have to meet them. I mean, it's the golden rule of governing, isn't it? Is, let me get this right, under-promise, over-deliver. And if he doesn't, then he's failing in that regard. But he's bought himself a bit of time. He's saying early September. He's got a couple of weeks to figure this out. And he said he's going to order his Justice Secretary to find a way. So let's hope he can do it and let's hope he can deliver.
Well, it's interesting because the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, has accused Andy Burnham and Labour of traumatising victims and their families. The mother of PC Andrew Harper, Debbie Adlam, has told the BBC she was in turmoil following the conflicting reports describing the handling of the situation as a hash. What do you think, Claire?
Well, you know, there's quite a bit to unpack here, and it has been discussed, at great length on a myriad of channels, the length and breadth of the country. However, I have to say that we might have to change the regulation on how we deal with people who kill public service workers, for instance. Sometimes that sentence might be the case that it is not up for parole and they just do the full jail term and that's it. But the wider picture here is something that we completely know about and we've known about for a long time. That is the overcrowding in our prisons. Now, the third point that wasn't clipped up in Burnham's speech today was something that I think has gone under the radar and something that needs to be unpacked, and that is including using the female estate for male offenders. Now, we know that there's nearly 11,500 or 13,000, I can't even remember the precise figure, you gave it to me last week, of male prisoners in this country.
Yeah.
Vis-a-vis 3,500
So there's about 85,000 in the entire prison estate.
Right.
There's about 12,000 foreign prisoners.
Yeah.
Of the whole prison estate, there's about 3,500 women. So generally, if you're a woman who's banged up in this country, you've generally something really bad. Really bad. Yeah. So the question is, should those people be released? Should they be put out in the community? Is there going to be sex discrimination simply because of that? Also, 3,500. We're talking about problems with about 5,000 capacity.
Yeah.
So clearly, they're looking at the female capacity, but you're not going to let Ruth West out.
But the female capacity doesn't have that much headroom. That's the other issue. So I don't understand where these prisoners will be held. And clearly, if you are a woman in prison, then you have done something seriously wrong. But I would expect you to be quite vulnerable as well. We've heard dramatic cases of women giving birth in prison.
Yeah.
And so this is not something that can be sniffed at. This is not something that can be dealt with by under...
You're right. I mean, Reform UK have talked about foreign prisoners going to El Salvador. They've also talked about Nightingale prison. That's something quite a number of people have talked about. What do you think of that idea, Sebastian? Is it practical?
No, it's not. It's classic Reform coming up with a very simple-sounding solution to a problem.
We did it for hospitals.
We did it for hospitals, but...
Which were never used.
But prisons are, by their definition, secure places. If we can knock up a prison in however many weeks or months, then why aren't we doing it already? Labour is on their way. They've already added a few thousand prison places. They want to add, was it 14,000 by the end of the term? If you're putting up these fabricated buildings, they're not going to be able to contain people securely. Then you have a bigger problem of people escaping. So I think it's a gimmick. It will never work, and I'm pleased that Labour isn't looking at it.
So they want to, the wider story, the long-term goal, this is from the government today, the wider infrastructure, they plan to aim to deliver 14,000 extra places by 2031.
Yes.
I think they've added something like 3,000 already.
Well, do you know what? Get rid of the 12,000 that should not be here because they're not domiciled here.
But again, it's so simple to say that. How do you do it?
You just put them on a plane and you send them somewhere, Sebastian.
And they don't get received.
It's not my problem.
There
it's
are
not
human rights concerns. You can't just ship people away.
Really? I think they lost their human right when they...
human rights are universal. You don't lose your human rights.
Well, I think they have when they committed a crime on our soil against someone in this country who's domiciled here, who has a British passport and who lives and pays their taxes here. These criminals should not even be here,
The point of human rights is they apply to you and me and the most evil people imaginable equally.
Well, I'm not for the death penalty. I'll give them that.
You'll give them the death penalty?
No, I would not. I'm saying I'm against that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't kill them.
No.
But I
So
want rid of them.
what about, OK, let's say for the sake of argument, Claire's plan and Reform UK's plan works and we send these people back. If you are, for example, committing a murder in a country that is not hostile but not on board with this, let's say that person then gets sent back to, I don't know, Colombia.
Yeah.
We send them back to Colombia and Colombia goes, right, fine, they're out. You've essentially got off scot-free, haven't you?
Well, it depends, because if you...
It does depend, but there will be people who will get off scot-free.
If you have good diplomatic relations with other countries...
But we don't with a lot of countries.
That's the issue. So we need to get our diplomacy on track. But also, I think that the country should actually take the prisoner and make them serve out the rest of their sentence.
But we have no control over that. And it's not just about diplomacy, it's about harmonising your justice systems, which we just can't do.
Well, you say we can't, you keep saying we can't, and you keep saying political parties like Reform are coming up with simple solutions.
We can't influence sentencing in Colombia.
One at a time.
Sorry, go on.
So how simple can it be? Why aren't we coming up with simple solutions? Why can't those simple solutions actually work, Sebastian?
Well, some of them do. Building more prisons works, and that's why the government is doing it.
We don't have the money for that. We don't have the infrastructure for that.
Well, it's happening.
We can hardly house boats that come over with migrants and asylum seekers on those boats. Sebastian. We can hardly house our people here who are on the council lists for houses, who can't even get on lists, who have to move away from family, move away from support. The cycle of poverty just increases and keeps going on. Education suffers, children suffer, and if children suffer, our society going forward will wholly suffer. Always.
You're completely right about housing, but I don't see how that links to the prison system, where the solution is just add more places, and that is what's already happened. That's what's going to continue to happen.
We don't have the actual fabric of the prisons to do that, Sebastian.
Do you, Sebastian, think that these probation officers, 90% of whom you turned up to vote, saying they're threatening to strike, do you think they have a point? Because the problem is that once these people are let out, which the government wants to do, it's passed the law, the Sentencing Act to do so, then they go into the kind of bailiwick of the probation service, who are already very, very overworked.
Yeah, and this is a real bottleneck for Burnham and for the service. And I think, you know, as a Labour Prime Minister, I want to see him showing proper deference to the workers as well. And the solution is you're going to have to hire more, but then it becomes a cost issue.
They've got a massive recruitment drive on at the moment.
I've seen the ads.
Well, good. I hope it works.
And do you think they would be right to strike, justified to strike, Claire?
Well, I think anyone who feels as 90% do, that's quite a high bar. That threshold is very high. They clearly have issues, and I would stand by their right to strike.
Thank you to Paul in Exeter, who says, for the record and for the purpose of factual correctness, something I always will care about, we have a working Nightingale Hospital in Exeter. I did not know that, Paul. That's good. Leslie says Burnham would actually have could actually have a phone in if he wants to hear what people are concerned about. My fear is this is just a vanity tour, and if the polls improve, he might call an election and win. Then we are in serious trouble. Who is interested in what he eats for breakfast? People are at their wits' end with the migrant crisis, which I fear will lead to protest. Let's hear a voice note which links to that from Elisa in Chelmsford.
Hi, Peter. I've been thinking about this whole tour that Burnham is going on, and I've come to the conclusion that he is a procrastinator. He's procrastinating from dealing with the real issues at hand, the issues that we all know are bothering the public. But he feels a little bit more comfortable being a campaigner, wandering about the country, posing for photographs and so on. I would say this about anybody from any party choosing to do this at a time when we actually know what the issues are.
And on migrant housing, Rob has been in touch with a voice note.
Peter, a couple of things with Burnham coming out and saying he's going to put illegal immigrants in working class areas, yeah? Number one, they're admitting that they've dumped them on the poor people and the working class for the last 20 years, and now we've had enough of it and we're full. So we're going to have to put them in with you middle class peoples, and they can stop hanging around your schools, and they can start ruining your small villages and your small little quaint towns. We've had to put up with this for 20, 30 years, and now the middle class England is going to get it. To be honest, Pete, it ain't our problem. So, well done, Burnham.
Thank you for that, Rob. Richard says, Sebastian, we can't send the lot back. People have had enough, and if Sebastian doesn't like it, he knows where the ferry is as well. Apparently, so there you go.
I'll wave my British passport way back.
Not sure whether where you're being deported to. Steve, I'd quite like to be deported to the Bahamas or maybe something like
that.
Listen,
Rwanda's looking pretty empty at the moment, isn't it?
Well, you know, on the Arsenal shirts it says visit Rwanda. Steve, key supporter, of course, Keir Starmer. Steve in Worcester says, great show, Peter. Does your guest Sebastian not quite understand that 13,000 new places have been created? They're not 13,000 new beds and cells. It's 13,000 people let out before they served a sentence for their crime. Lovely manipulation of statistics. I think what Sebastian was talking about was about the 13,000 prison places that are going to be created.
Yeah, and 3,000 net new. I think that's the right figure. Have already been created.
So everyone talks about the Tories saying, oh, they only created 500 new places. Yes, correct, factually correct, no issue there. They also closed a load of prisons and sort of replaced them as well. So it's a little bit more complicated. It's still bad, but it's a little bit more complicated.
Just for balance, this isn't just a Burnham policy. This isn't a Burnham problem.
This
has
been 30 years.
We have to make that quite clear.
Oh, it's huge, absolutely.
It's not a Labour government.
No, totally. No, it's Conservatives as well. And, you know, I was in the Ministry of Justice for 6 months and I played my part, or failed to play my part too. Leslie says, please tell Sebastian that Stephen Kinnock campaigned and won against a mega prison in Wales that the Tories planned, which is a fair point. And Martin also says, also on Sebastian,
go on,
says, is the idea of to keep bringing Sebastian back on the show to lower the viewing and listening figures? Well, Martin, we've just had an increase, a fairly healthy increase in our viewing and listening figures, both as a station and indeed for this show specifically. The idea of bringing Sebastian on the panel is to have the section's called the debate desk. If everyone just agrees all the time, there's not much of a debate. So Claire and Sebastian often disagree on things, and I'm delighted to have them both on the programme, not least because there's a heck of a lot more to talk about, including those high streets and including what Andy Burnham has said about migrants and specifically asylum seekers. I want your view on it too, and Martin, you're very welcome to ring in or send me another message, 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Leslie says Labour are emptying prisons ready for protesters who are at the end of their tether. Barry in Sunnyside says, I don't understand why people sent to prison by our courts for a specific sentence are able to have that sentence reduced by half. Did the judge not know what he was doing when imposing the sentence? Is justice for lawbreakers only? His Majesty's government should provide the prison places if none are built, then turn to the equivalent of prisoner of war camps erected in weeks, not years, and change the human rights law as well. Certainly that's what Reform UK and the Conservatives want to do with the European Convention on Human Rights. Christopher says, I am unclear, why does Burnham need to go around the country when his eyes and ears on the ground are supposed to be his MPs? Sean and Bester, Sean, I haven't heard from you in a while, great to hear from you. Sean and Bester says, evening Peter, Andy Burnham is making out it's our fault the illegal migrants are here and has come up with a plan to put them in our lovely neighbourhoods to teach us a lesson. Mind you, we're getting them anyway, and Bester, I'm trying to savour the tranquility until they arrive. This is something that a lot of people are getting in touch about this evening, about Andy Burnham's comments, talking about more middle class areas, leafier areas where he says everyone's got to take their sort of fair share of asylum seekers. Many people say, why can't you just solve the problem in the first place? Claire, what do you make of this?
Well, again, I think he is a great communicator and he is just explaining to people, you know, like it is. He sees that these red wall seats, the seats have been taken over by Reform, the traditional working class northern seats, etc., etc. And I think he's talking to them, and I think he's saying, look, we understand you've completely had it. It is unfair, and everybody has to deal with this as a society. It's everyone's problem. That's what he's saying.
Joe in Willerby in East Yorkshire says, hi Peter, great show. Thank you, Joe, appreciate that. The middle classes are already doing their fair share, says Joe. Alarm clock Brits getting up in the morning, running businesses, paying taxes, not relying on the welfare state, living in nice areas and paying handsomely for council tax. Why should we put up with this? We don't want this. The Conservatives and Labour should all hang their heads in shame. What would you say to Joe, Sebastian?
Well, there are many parts of the country, middle class or not, that have decided to become boroughs of sanctuary. And these are places where they've said, we will welcome asylum seekers, we will make sure that they are OK when they come here.
Scotland as a country's already done that.
Yeah, and so I don't buy into the narrative that nobody wants them at all. There are people who are willing to work constructively. It's not always easy, and I think Burnham is doing the right thing here, because if there's one British value we can all agree on, it's fairness, and I think this is the fair thing to do. And I say this as a middle-class person myself.
So you'd be happy for asylum seekers to move into your street?
Yeah.
We probably are, and you don't know.
Yeah, we've had them in the past, in the borough. I don't think they're there at the moment, but I'd be very happy to welcome them back.
OK, lots of other people getting in touch on this. If you want to get your call on the air, we'll take some calls very soon. 0344 499 1000. Let's talk about high streets, because Andy Burnham says high streets have been hollowed out over decades of decline as he vows to crack down on the spread of vaping shops and bookies. Now, I don't really want... I slightly wonder if he's saying we're going to clean up high streets, we're going to make them places a bit friendlier and a bit less identikit and all the rest of it, but he's saying that asylum seekers could well move into areas as well. I'm not saying the two are necessarily contradictory by themselves, but he does seem to be slightly talking out of both sides of his mouth. I just wonder what you think of this.
Well, you know, I just think high streets are in decline, and I think some of them are particularly hollowed out, a very good expression. And if I see another bike lane, Sebastian, or if I see another tyrannical parking restrictions put up everywhere that no one can actually drive anywhere onto, see another tanning shop, estate agent, I think I might actually scream. The rates for small businesses are exorbitant. We need to slash those rates. We need to get entrepreneurs. We need to get individual, independent stores popping up in the high street with local goods, local services, staffed by local people, and make our communities grow. That's what we need.
I totally agree with you. Isn't the problem that there aren't people going to the high street because they're logging on, they're buying...
No, because of bike lanes.
It's not just that.
It is.
No, come on, it's not just that.
It is.
OK, that's part of it, but it's not all of it. The fact is that if you want a big shop, you're far more likely to go online and get it delivered.
Yeah, that's a big shop. But what the beauty about going onto the high road, of your high road, as part of your community. You've got community schools there. You'll walk your children to school. You will walk to church, perhaps. Use a library. Go for a coffee. Sit in the park. And these are all wonderful, wonderful things that you can do if we've got great independent shops bolstering our communities.
I agree with you, and I'm again going to toot the horn of Waltham Forest because we're a very good example of this. I genuinely have a true 15-minute city. I can get everything I need within a 15-minute walk. One of the things that allows that to happen, I'm afraid, is more cycle lanes. No, it's more cycle lanes. Leighton Road in, Francis Road in Leighton was just your average, you know, like the back alley, you've got a few shops, it was nothing much. They pedestrianised it. Now children play in the streets. The businesses are thriving.
You can't do that in a lot of mini towns in London. No, you can't. You couldn't do it where I am, for instance, in that high road, because it's a major arterial route.
No, but these are side streets. These are side streets.
So you think they should follow that example that other towns should be Leighton oriented?
I've never seen very good.
I see what you did there. I see what you did there. Doff cab.
I've never seen a situation where more cars has created a friendlier, healthier high street. Only better ways of travel.
Well, I think the ability to drive, I think removing the choice from everybody. I mean, I don't even drive in London. I gave up my car. But I just don't like the punitive way that restrictions that put a hold on people actually doing things.
OK.
That's what I don't like.
We'll take a few more messages now. Adam in Brighton says neither Starmer nor Burnham are incompetent when it comes to the illegal migrant crisis. They're servants of the World Economic Forum. No, they're not. No, they're not, Adam. They're not. That's not what happens. Kev in Suffolk says, I believe this is an attempt by Burnham to cause a rift between the so-called working class and the middle class over the migrants, usual government tactic, dividing the population at every opportunity.
Well, how's he dividing it when he's saying that everyone should have them?
Well, he's saying it should be leafier areas, I suppose, is maybe part of it. The suicidal empaths who say that asylum seekers are welcome should duly be required to house an asylum seeker in their own home. Let's see how welcome they find asylum seekers then. Glyn says, has Sebastian ever thought of running for Prime Minister? He can gaslight as good as the rest of them. OK. Mike in Nottingham says, so sorry, Peter, but when I hear Sebastian, I have to switch off.
Oh, that's a shame. Yet you're still here writing in. Curious, that
Stay with us, Mike. Stay with us, Mike.
Jenny, Mike.
Jenny in Doncaster says, love Claire as a fellow Scot. She obviously speaks sense, says Claire. Well, we will, as Claire was suggesting...
It wasn't me texting in, that's not me. It's not me.
We will, as Claire was suggesting a moment ago, take the high road for a couple of minutes. But we'll be back after this break. Lots to discuss. Stay with us here on Talk.
single sex spaces on biological sex.
Yeah.
And therefore you cannot have people going into a women's space, which is for women only, who is not a biological woman.
I was wondering whether that interview was conducted on April Fool's Day, because I think it was a new low in the sort of...
A new low for low?
A new low for low, because, I mean, just the absurdity of not being able to ask a very basic question about the monarch of our country.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Stephen Millings in Belfast says you cannot release those police killers. What a load of nonsense there. The government, they make the laws. Even if they break the law, who on earth cares? Andy, grow a pair, for goodness sake. Dawn says it's rather obvious King Andy wants to house migrants in affluent areas as part of Labour's class warfare. Why should anyone live in a peaceful village and enjoy life? Mick says Jess Phillips has admitted throwing a sickie to avoid Commons questions about Mandelson. That should be gross misconduct. She should be subject to recall. The optics for our working people are shameful. Another person says we don't want illegals in any area. Deport them all and get rid of Burnham. He is pathetic. I just want to talk about something tomorrow that's happening. We've got the almost total solar eclipse, and UK households have been told not to use their dishwasher between 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock tomorrow. This comes as news about the cost of turning off wind farms exceeding £1 billion so far this year. This almost total eclipse, the last one happened was around 2000. The Chinese actually say that a solar eclipse is very much like a dragon eating the sun, draining us of all life. Claire Muldoon.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm very much for life, and I don't agree with all this druidy stuff and all this Chinese.
Can't imagine why.
Chinese comms, etc., etc. You've got a great vista here for it.
Yeah, that's
tomorrow.
lovely.
I think we'll still come up and see it tomorrow.
It'll probably be a bit dark though.
Yeah, well, yeah. But I'll be the light.
That's it.
I
like it.
I'll be the light. I'll be the shining light. Well, do you know what? Because this edict has come out, I actually want to put my dishwasher on and put a washing on between 6 and 8
Julia Hartley-Brewer puts her all the lights on in her home during Earth Hour as well. So
good.
No, this is Octopus, one of the biggest energy companies in the country. I'm a customer of them, I should declare. And they say that you shouldn't be using your dishwasher because there might not be enough power.
Yeah, because the sun is going to be eclipsed, and therefore the solar energy panels will not be able to reap the sunlight, and then the grid won't be able to cope with it.
I mean,
that's ridiculous.
If the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow, this is a problem with renewables, isn't it?
Well, it's annoying that eclipses happen on a weekly basis. We're just going to have to give up on solar energy. It's the only way.
Is it a climate change issue, Sebastian?
No, the sun's going nowhere. It's going to be absolutely fine. And you get an hour of free energy as well. I'm also an Octopus customer, and I got the email. So I will not be running anything at that time.
Why?
Because you've got to play your part, haven't you? We're all part of a society. We're not individuals. To what? To keep the grid going.
And the grid is going to collapse because people...
But you're paying for access to the electricity. Surely you should be allowed to use it.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, true. But if somebody says, hey, could you just not use it for this hour, I'd be obliged to.
I'm a bit worried about this as a general concept. Not on this specific thing, but they say there are people say, you know, run your washing machine at night time and so on.
I get that, because it's cheaper.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, me too.
But isn't this a two-tier system where we're saying to people, hold on, we're paying you, rich people basically can run their washing machine whenever they want. Poor people can't. They've got to do it in a different way. It's not very fair, is it? When you're all paying for the electricity.
And remember when lockdown happened and that law came in, and that law is still in existence for any government to be able to lock down the country as and when they do. I think this is something similar. It's quite sinister. And if they tell you you can't do it, they're going to remove the can't, and you won't be able to.
Well,
that's
do you know
my
what?
issue.
I was speaking to somebody who's quite senior at one of our energy companies, and they said that the thing that would bring bills down the most is allowing blackouts to happen. And so you'd have a battery, you'd use the battery for emergencies, but the amount of money we spend on keeping the grid going is what we're paying for.
That's interesting. Let's talk about anti-Semitism, because there is some really, really shocking incidents, and actually the other day we were told that anti-Semitism incidents have gone up by a fifth. Now head teachers of some Jewish schools are spending more of their time, substantially more in many cases, dealing with security arrangements than on educational matters. This is a review into anti-Semitism in schools and colleges by Sir David Bell, and one head teacher said, in recent years security has become an overwhelming priority and increased a significant amount. There have been weeks where approximately 90% of my time has been spent on security-related matters. Security concerns can become one of the many things that head teachers carry with them beyond the school day, and quite literally can be among the things that keep me awake at night. Sebastian.
Oh, so depressing, isn't it? So depressing. I mean, I'm seeing other quotes in the story talking about Nazi salutes becoming widespread. How did we get here? And, you know, it links to the story about the would-be councillor within the Tories. Why on earth did that ever happen?
We'll get to that in a second, but surely your own party has quite a lot to play in this, with what happened during Jeremy Corbyn's years.
It was horrendous.
Well, and more recently, recognising a Palestinian state hasn't exactly... I mean, that was welcomed by Hamas.
Sure,
Keir Starmer was praised by Hamas for doing that.
Yes, but I don't think that means it was the wrong thing to do. I think recognising a state that clearly is there is the right thing to do. Doesn't make you an anti-Semite. You can draw that line.
Yeah. It's not going to help anti-Semitism in this country, though.
But he also declared the programme of the IRGC, which took him long enough to do, but at least he did that.
Yeah, in fairness to him, he did that.
But this report is coming out during the summer holidays, though, and I hope it's not lost, because this is really, really serious. Over half of the Jewish schools that took part in this report have said that they have got grave concerns going forward for the security of their pupils. That is horrific.
Yeah.
I remember back in 2023, at the time of October the 7th, and some friends of mine with children that go to Jewish schools, they could not go to school with their blazer on for fear of them being chastised and openly ridiculed for being Jewish.
Yeah, and having to explain to a child what's going on as well.
Yeah, but I think that's quite healthy to have that grown-up discussion. But I don't think, and I keep saying this, we cannot conflate criticism of the State of Israel to that of being anti-Semitic.
One teacher talking about my car being searched with an under-car mirror as well. And as Sebastian was talking about earlier, I'm very happy to talk about Luciana Berger. We did ask her in the programme this evening. She's not doing interviews at the moment, but she is a Labour peer. She was treated horrendously by Joshua Bonehill-Payne, who is now back in the Conservative Party. He's not going to be standing as a councillor, but he is an advisor to Kemi Badenoch, arguably having more influence. He has now apologised to her publicly through a podcast, but she has urged the Conservatives to sack him. What do you think should happen, Claire?
I don't think Kemi should sack him, to be honest with you, because I think there's a lot to be learnt from this. He's come out. We were speaking about prison system, and we need to hope and we need to believe that rehabilitation does work. Now, we know the level of reoffending in prisons, right? But he went on a podcast and he told of his childhood, being brought up in care, in foster care, in and out of that, and he got into a rum lot when he was 17, 18. And he explicitly, absolutely without a shadow of a doubt, has said that what he did was wrong. Now, you take a cyber attacker. I'm not making a leap from anti-Semitism to cyber attacks. What I am making a leap is a lot of security firms use those people that do make those data leaks, that do have those cyber attacks, that do the coding to get that done. They use them and they use their intelligence to work for us. I think having someone as horrific as that, as he was, as an advisor to the government, can actually be some form of disinfectant into what has happened.
So my problem with Joshua Bonehill-Payne is that he apologised in this podcast.
Yeah.
He didn't apologise to Luciana Berger at any point, and he could have very easily written her a letter. He could have asked for a meeting before he decided.
She turned up in court, didn't she?
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
I mean, she's been through a horrendous time. She could have very easily been approached in some way, emailed. You know, most members of the legislature have emails online. It would have been an easy way to do this, and it wasn't done. And also, I do wonder if he had become a councillor, would those constituents feel confident going to him if they'd been victims of anti-Semitism? For example, the doubt will always be there. He may well be a reformed character, and maybe we need to give people a second chance. but it is something that I think will worry an awful lot of people. What do you think, Sebastian?
Yeah, I've really grappled with this one because you want to believe in the principle of forgiveness, don't you? But I think on this one,
we have David Spencer on the station, for example. David Spencer went to prison for fraud. We have Lucy Connolly on the station from David Shipley. Apologies, David Spencer, someone else who knows a lot about home affairs. Apologies, it's David Shipley who was in prison for fraud. Lucy Connolly's been on the station before, as have other people who spent time in prison. So it's not as if I don't believe people can be redeemed. Yeah. But in this particular, I mean, the handling of this was done very, very badly.
That's it, and it's so recent, and there are other victims as well. It's not just Luciana Berger. There are so many reasons not to want to allow him into the party or into some role. But the other part of this is, it feels like such a political misstep. I mean, I've spoken to senior Tories this week who were former colleagues of Kemi Badenoch, and they said, why did she do this? This was an unenforced error.
Especially when she has had such a strong reputation as someone who stood up against anti-Semitism, and she has. I think she's got that reputation correctly. Claire Muldoon. As soon as I saw this story, I thought, I want to know what Claire... Do you know what? I'm actually going to save it. I'm going to save it for a moment. I'm going to go to Sebastian first. I'm going to save it just for a moment. Delayed gratification involving Claire Muldoon. Sebastian, a cancellation of a flight in Canada after a child refused to wear a seatbelt has reignited a debate about the etiquette and safety procedures relating to children travelling on planes. The young child was standing in their seat and would not secure their seatbelt. The delay meant the flight could not depart before the runway closed after midnight, so passengers had to be rebooked on a flight the following day. Regarding the child's behaviour, Porter Airlines in Canada said attempts by the accompanying parent and crew to address this were unsuccessful.
I'm not going to be able to say it as well as Claire, so I'm going to tell a story instead. I had a friend who's a doctor. He was on a plane, and they said, are there any doctors present? And he tried to lie low, he didn't want to get involved. And then they said, no, are there any doctors present? He puts his hand up, the guy's having a seizure, he says, we've got to land the plane. It's a long-haul flight coming from Australia to London. They land in Hamburg. By the time they've landed, the guy's absolutely fine. He walks off the plane, and everybody's looking at my mate and saying, you've landed this plane for no good reason. He was the most unpopular man on that flight. So you've got to be careful.
I don't see the parallel here at all.
There's no parallel, it's just landing flights.
What do you think about?
Not.
What do you think about the child? What do you think about the child?
Go on.
This is a child that should have been nipped by the hand by the parent.
Was it?
A slap in the bum, made to sit down, and strapped within an inch of its life.
Did it have a parent, or is it those children who travel on their own?
No. The parents were there.
The
attempts by the accompanying parent and crew to address this were unsuccessful.
Well, I'm sorry, you were an unsuccessful parent then. That parent should be taken off you. You cannot parent a child.
What should happen in that situation? Could you then say, look, it's 11:30, this has gone on for too long, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you and your child to come off the flight? Surely that's the thing you say.
Well, that is the thing, but as a parent, what you should be is in control of your child. No child should be kicking off like that on a plane. I don't care what it's got. I don't care if it's got one of those lanyards that everyone's got now at airports to get through security. I don't care. That's your child, it's your responsibility. CalPol is available airside, it's available other sides, and there's myriad of things you can do. You need to accept that when you're travelling, you need to travel at the time the child would be calm. You need to make it sleep. You need to, make it sure it behaves itself. No kicking seats in front, no crying, and certainly no standing up and not allowing a flight to take off. That is horrific.
What do you think about the crew in all of this? How do they manage this situation, do you think?
I think their hands are absolutely tied. It's a pity they didn't tie the child. If they tied the child, they wouldn't be in this position.
OK, thank you very much. That was definitely worth waiting for. Lots of... let me just bring... this one in. Tell Sebastian the way we got here. It's by Waltham Forest raising the Palestinian flag over the town hall and lighting the town hall up in the colours of the Palestinian flag. Shalom, says Ben Herschel. So that is a reply to you.
Was that under Labour or the Greens?
I don't know.
I don't remember us doing that.
OK. Sebastian was, of course, a councillor, no longer in that area. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Thank you both very much to Sebastian and
seems
indeed
to fly in
to Claire.
every week,
it certainly really does.
We should extend it. We should stay until 10.
Lots more to discuss. Stay with us here on Talk.
You'd have no viewers left if he was still here.
Stay with us.
It is therefore my honour to declare that the duly elected leader of the Labour Party is Andy Burnham.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much. I believe in all of you, and I am confident we can do it. Thank you very much. I have just come from Buckingham Palace, where I have accepted His Majesty the King's invitation to form a government. I know people at home are fed up with politics. I hear you, and I want to be honest with you. We have not been good enough, and we need to be better. We will be.
This man has no mandate whatsoever. He didn't stand on the 2024 general election manifesto. You cannot make the biggest change in British politics in 40 years without a mandate from the British people, and it will be only decent, right and proper to call a general election on that issue and to do it now.
Our fifth Prime Minister in 4 years. Blimey. And, well, look, we want him to succeed. But will this one be any different? Andy Burnham, the new head honcho, the speed this all happened, I know this is a well-trodden debate already, is actually breathtaking. 1 minute he was Mayor of Greater Manchester. What, a month and a bit ago he wasn't even an MP. The next he's holding keys to number 10 without the country ever really having a chance to scrutinise him in a prospective prime ministerial nothing at all. We really know very little.
I think Burnham has to walk a fine line. I think that's probably what's going on, because if he were to sweep into Downing Street and say, I'm going to change everything, I'm going to fix everything, I'm going to do things different.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good evening. Thank you for your company so far. If you've been with us for the last hour, if you're just joining us, it's just past 8 o'clock. This is the Evening Exchange on Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell, and there is a load to talk about this Tuesday evening, especially where migrants, specifically asylum seekers, should go, because the Prime Minister says they could be coming to your area. Middle-class, nice areas, he says, not just areas where they've been put already, although some of those are lovely areas too, of course. He says that everyone needs to take their quote-unquote fair share. What do you think of that? 0344 499 1000. He also thinks that high streets can be rescued. The vape shops, the dodgy businesses should go. He says, what do you think of that? We're talking as well about whether Labour is scared of reform, because in January this year, Labour risks an electoral wipeout unless it improves the high streets, according to a study. We'll look into that in just a second. Last night, we talked about a pension firm telling veterans to repay, having a history of errors. Many veterans have got in touch with us. We're going to continue talking about that story. The Department of Work and Pensions have been in touch about that too. We'll talk about anti-Semitism towards Jewish children. It's shocking, according to a government report, and the Labour peer urging Tories to sack the former neo-Nazi who abused her. We'll talk about Jason Arday as well, the professor at Cambridge. One of his colleagues has a very interesting view on education. She says that it is something, the Western education is something that she doesn't support. She's a woman called Farah Ahmed. She says Western education is a threat to Muslims. She's condemned democracy and integration. She is now responsible for postgraduate research in education at Cambridge University. Loads to discuss this evening. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. Send me a voice note, 0344 499 1000. That's the number for WhatsApp text messages and for phone calls as well. Lots of those coming in. Stay with us between now and 10 here in the Evening Exchange. Well, the Prime Minister is on his tour of the UK at the moment. There's a lot that he's been talking about. One thing I didn't mention a second ago is PC Harper's killers and whether they should be released or not. The Prime Minister says he's working to make sure they aren't released. Is that actually possible? Yesterday he said it wasn't. Today he says it does. It really is all over the place. And PC Harper's mother says that she is very traumatised by this. Let's hear what the Prime Minister is saying today on this.
I've heard the depth of concern felt across the country about the potential release of the killers of PC Andrew Harper, and obviously I feel for the family and the anguish that they're going through. What I have done since I came into office is push the system every single day to go further. I've not accepted it's impossible to do more. I believe there is more that can be done. So today I have asked the Justice Secretary to present a plan in early September to Parliament to go further so that we do not have to release as many people early. And that plan will include issues like returning more foreign national offenders to their country of origin and looking at the injustice of IPP sentences which have led to young people, or young when they were imprisoned, being imprisoned indeterminately, and that clearly is unfair.
The Prime Minister speaking earlier today, he also spoke about revitalising high streets. What do you think of your high street? Because there are a lot of people who are getting in touch saying that it is not somewhere where they feel safe, it's not somewhere they want to go and shop, it's not somewhere that actually sells things that they want to buy. This is what the Prime Minister has said about high streets.
There's a real concern across the country, I felt it in the Makerfield by-election, about high streets that have been hollowed out, particularly in former industrial areas. They just have been in decline for a long time. And I want to give local communities the power to turn things around. And that means clamping down on some of the businesses that cause harm in communities and then supporting those that bring life back to our high street. So we are announcing big changes today to give communities more control over planning when it comes to vape shops, adult gaming centres, and also the proliferation of betting shops by removing the aim to permit.
And then, interestingly, in another interview today, he said middle-class families should play their part by accepting asylum seeker accommodation near their homes. He says he wants to work to ensure the poorest communities do not have to take the lion's share of accommodation for asylum seekers. I do have to say that we cannot have a situation where it's only the poorest communities in the country that receive all of the dispersal of refugees and asylum seekers. I do believe all parts of the country, the Prime Minister said, need to work to play their part. It's a challenging issue. We're working at it. We understand people's concerns. On small boats, he said it would be wrong, I think, for me to make a prediction based on a timeline. I would rather promise to people that I know I can do and what I know I can do and what I know I can deliver, and that is a relentless focus on this issue to deal with an issue of public concern. Tristan has been in touch on this migrant housing issue, which is a really big one tonight. Loads of people getting in touch about it. Let's hear just one opinion. This is from Tristan.
What about we don't want it? Why can't they be deported? Why can't we come out of the ECHR and actually do it? Why do we have to put up with this? People don't want it. The amount of times people keep saying, we don't want it, we don't want it, we don't want it. And the thing is the numbers aren't stagnating. They're coming over every single day on massive, ginormous dinghies as well. How many times? Why should we have to put up with having a population explosion because we're bringing in migrants and then we have to look after them and support them and everything? And loads of them are committing crime as it is. This is a farce, absolute farce. Really, really is.
And this comes in the wake of that 230-person dinghy, not a small boat, a huge boat, coming across the channel yesterday. Nicola's been in touch too. She says, can we stop calling them asylum seekers? The vast majority are economic migrants who just want a better life. Nothing wrong with that in some respects, but we cannot house them all here. We are full. The country is broke. Stop the boat. Soon all the indigenous people will be emigrating. Well, the former immigration minister is Kevin Foster. He joins me now. He's a former Conservative MP for Torbay. Kevin, good evening to you.
Evening, Peter. Hi.
Do you think it's fair that the Prime Minister says that we cannot have a situation where it's only the poorest communities in the country that receive all the dispersal of refugees and asylum seekers? I believe all parts of the country need to work to play their part. Is that fair?
Well, Peter, I think he's right to say that it shouldn't just be poorest communities that are facing this. And it's actually sort of Andy Burnham's take on some of what Reform was saying earlier this year when they had their pledge of vote green, get illegals, their idea that they would put asylum accommodation more and detention centres specifically into areas that were voted to support more migration. And you might actually say it's partly what Andy Burnham's alluding to is places that voted Liberal Democrat across much of the southeast and southwest can probably look forward to getting the outcome of some of what their MPs argue for in terms of more open borders. But there are some practical realities here. It's one of the reasons why high-mo housing for asylum seekers in some of the places it is ultimately because of cost. You know, the costs of renting out high-mo accommodation, if you can find it.
You're talking about homes of multiple occupancy, HMOs?
Yeah, homes of multiple occupation. Most people are unsurprised to hear that rents in the areas that Andy Burnham might be referring to as needing to take more are more expensive than they are in some of the big cities. If you go back about 20-odd years ago, some of the big cities volunteered to be part of this type of scheme because it was a way of filling up basically vacant properties. Some people may remember that places like Liverpool and others had issues with slight numbers of vacant properties going back to that time. But that's, of course, become a point where some of those cities that were involved first back 20-odd years back feel they've more than done enough on this. And, of course, for the Labour Party, there's the realistic fact that some of those areas have voted quite heavily for reform, or even Boris Johnson in recent years. And part of the reason for that is people getting fed up with being the place that immigration issues are housed.
Well, I heard actually on Sunday from a friend of mine, his mother lives in Mansfield, and she was saying that she wanted to move very far away from there because of the problem with small boat migrants who are there and asylum seekers who are changing the area, and that would be where she lives anyway. I'm sure Mansfield is a lovely place, but where she lives is not a particularly salubrious area. Do you think Andy Burnham has a plan here, or is he simply trying to soften people up and say, look, this plan isn't, nothing's really going to change. There are going to be a lot more asylum seekers. They're coming to an area near you, and I'm sorry, that's just the way things are. Is he being honest here, and is that honesty belying the fact that he doesn't have a plan?
I think, Peter, you might be a bit of a mixture here, and I think you're right to allude to, is he preparing people for something? Because I think in reality, he knows that a tougher approach needs to be taken on this. You've just heard Tristan and others. There'll be plenty of people feeling exactly like that, who've traditionally actually not just voted Conservative, but traditionally voted Labour in the areas most affected by this. But the problem he's got is to get really tough and difficult measures through, he's got to get Labour MPs to actually agree with them, or he's going to end up having to rely on the Conservative Party and Reform to vote through that sort of stuff, which will be a deeply unattractive prospect for him to fundamentally really want to tackle this problem and end up having to rely on the opposition to vote with him to do so. So some of this may well be a bit of that sort of shaking many across the country, say, you know, you can't just sit there and vote for this, or voters think that you know, it's all very tough, we should stay in the ECHR, all this, that and the other, and then think, but it's all right, because it's not going to affect me, it's going to affect the people who live down the road in a city I don't live in. So I think that may be some of this happening here, is that, one, a little bit of being honest, but also perhaps prepping the country, in particular some Labour MPs, for the reality of, you know, you can sit there on high-minded ideals, or you can vote to sort this problem, but don't think what the result, if we can't tackle this problem, will just be in someone else's constituency. It'll be in yours as well. So that may be a little bit of what's going on here.
OK, interesting. Darryl in Lincoln's been in touch. He says, I kind of agree with Andy Burnham over the asylum seekers. They should all go into HMOs in the wealthy small villages and towns in the country. The working class people should get behind this, because traditionally the inner cities and the poorest areas have always borne the brunt, and the middle and upper class areas and the Guardian readers in their idyllic villages just smile and say there's no problem. This might wake them up to the reality of what it's like to have a load of them living nearby. What do you think of what Darryl's saying there?
Yeah, Darryl's got a good point, actually. You know, the very people who'll sort of snootily look down their nose at people saying there needs to be action on migration will then react quite badly to having the outcome of their policies drop and how they vote in their own local community. We can see the most famous, the most notorious example of that was at the end of last year when the deputy of the Green Party, who apparently wanted to, you know, hang out the flags to welcome refugees into this country. Then when it was proposed to house people in Wealdon, in her own council area where she lives, you know, where she lives in, I think, a £1.2 million home, suddenly she wasn't quite so keen on the outcome of her own policies. So, you know, there is a point there, and it's why we've seen a lot of communities across the north, particularly in the Red Wall, getting increasingly fed up with this issue. That's been being shown in their election results over certainly over the last year. And I suspect Andy Burnham, who represents a very different constituency to Keir Starmer. You know, Keir Starmer represented a place in central London with plenty of champagne socialists. You've now got Andy Burnham, who represents Makerfield, that voted Leave, that experiences many of these issues. But it can't just be the idea that we're just going to spread people across the country. What he's got to do is actually implement solutions. I hope he does. You know, I'm a patriot. I want to see this issue
But is this
solved.
good or bad politics, do you think? Because surely those more middle-class areas are the ones that, if an election is coming up either in the next few months. I don't think it is, but many people say there could be a snap election. I don't think it's going to happen. Let's say for my argument is it'll happen in 3 years' time. If you have 3 years of those kind of areas that Andy Burnham really needs to win to stay as Prime Minister, where you have people up in arms, absolutely upset, they're looking to reform UK, maybe even to the Conservatives as well, saying we're going to withdraw from the ECHR, we're going to sort this problem. That's bad for Andy Burnham, isn't it?
Possibly, although let's remember, Peter, many of the areas he's talking about are Lib Dem Conservative marginals, you know, places in Surrey, parts of Hampshire.
So you're not worried?
Going through Oxfordshire. So, you know, Andy Burnham, probably the Labour Party, got about 5-6%. You can even think of where I used to represent, Torbay, which is a Lib Dem Conservative marginal, where the Labour Party hasn't even got a councillor. So there are some swathes of the country that fit this description, where literally there is nothing for Labour to lose, even if they did really annoy people. You know, it's one of the, I think, perhaps a wake-up call for some people who've been either abstaining or voting for other parties about what it could mean for them. But we've all got to come back to this. At the end of the day, you know, if we just talk about how we accommodate the problem, that's not solving the problem. And the only way we're ultimately going to deal with this is a comprehensive strategy to drive down the reasons for coming to this country and drive up the chances of being removed from this country, and finding places to send people who France won't take back and for whatever reason we can't return to their home country. And that's where a third country plan like Rwanda comes in. Kevin, if you don't do something like that, then Andy is going to play a political penalty for this in the years to come.
And a lot more to talk about on that as well. No doubt we'll talk more. Kevin, thank you. Kevin Foster there, former Immigration Minister. He was a Conservative MP for Torbay. We're going to take your calls, text, tweets and voice notes next. We're also going to speak very soon about the veterans pension scandal. If you're watching last night, we spoke to a veteran and the head of a veterans organisation, and then another veteran rang in actually to talk about this pension scandal. Many veterans not getting the money owed to them properly, getting too much and then being told they got to pay it back. In one case, over £130,000. It's something we really should be talking about. Lots of people getting in touch as well. Loads of messages coming in. I'll get to as many of those as I can. One person says, sorry, did your guest earlier on, Lots and Sebastian by the way, say that he does all the shopping in 15 minutes on Leytonstone High Road and gets everything he needs? I think he could be a professor in Cambridge. More on that actually later as well. One of the other academics there, I think there's some questions about her. Lisa McKenzie is going to join us on that. Another person, Reddington 101, says, hi Peter, the pharmacy and post office closed in our high street because of the rates being too high. We have however gotten a estate agent and the bookies. That's Glenys Evington from Leicester. And Carol says, to be able to walk around the local shops, like Claire says, I'm housebound so I have to do my shopping online. Carol also says, why are people so horrible about Sebastian? I enjoy him and Claire together. Carol, you're clearly a very sensible person and I enjoy speaking to them together. I fundamentally disagree with Sebastian Salek on basically everything, but the debate desk is where people come to, drumroll, debate. I want to debate with you too, whether you think I'm talking sense or nonsense, whatever you want to say, however you want to say it. 0344 499 1000.
Sex basis on biological sex.
Yeah.
And therefore you cannot have people going into a women's space, which is for women only, who is not a biological woman.
I was wondering whether that interview was conducted on April Fool's Day, because I think it was a new low in the sort of...
A new low for low?
A new low for low, because, I mean, just the absurdity of not being able to ask a very basic question about the monarch of our country.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Sarah has been in touch with a voice note on migration.
Andy Burnham, quite frankly, can do one. He wants to talk about fairness. I'll tell him about fairness. I run 2 small businesses on my own. I can't afford to employ anybody. I'm working 7 days a week. My outgoings have increased by 36% year on year. I am cutting back as much as I can. That is not fair. My council has been bankrupt twice. My council tax was increased by 15% a couple of years ago. I'm never going to get a rebate on that, am I? And he wants to talk about fairness when we've got people breaking into our country illegally. I'll tell you what's fair, stop them coming. They pay nothing to this country. They contribute nothing. They take. And I, for one, am sick of it.
Sarah, really interesting voice note. I can hear the passion in your voice. I can hear how hard you work. I can hear how much the thumb screws have been applied when it comes to 36% more expensive to run your businesses, 15% increase in your council tax. You must just see this time and time again and just think, what is the benefit? What is the reward for doing the right thing? There's Sarah. She's running 2 businesses. She's putting a load of money into the economy. She's providing services that people clearly want, yet she's been hammered and hammered and hammered financially. And I know there will be countless Sarahs out there. There will be countless examples of this, of people trying to contribute in some way, trying to make the country better, trying to just get a bit of money for themselves to live a good life. And time again, the money comes out of their account, the taxes are so high, the council tax goes up, and then we're told, oh no, you got to take some asylum seekers in your area. I mean, where is the reward for doing the right thing? The veteran situation as well, we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. Leslie in Hartley says, this veteran situation, utterly shameful. We shell out millions on welfare or money for migrants but can't take care of our veterans. I do hope someone can pick this up and get it sorted. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes, Leslie, don't you worry. Angie's been in touch and said, I just wanted to say that not all people on benefits are scroungers regarding higher earners paying more tax. My friend is 68 and is in advanced heart failure. He worked in the dockyard. He was a fit and healthy man, but age caught up. I'm 52. I have lifelong blood disorders, osteoarthritis and life-threatening blood clots that need me to be on blood thinners for life due to vaccine damage. We cannot work, we cannot contribute to society, but we have in the past. I want to thank every alarm clock Blitton person for getting up so we can get the help we need, for keeping on paying their taxes, because we can't anymore. We appreciate you all. Thank you. Angie, I've never heard a message just quite like that, and I really appreciate it. And please, you do contribute. You do contribute to our society. You're not someone who's simply taking. You are contributing in your own way, and thank you for that. And you have in the past. And if you could, you would be paying those taxes and working hard. And it's not your fault. You're in the situation you're in. And I wish you and everyone you mentioned in that message all the very best. Dave says, good evening, Peter. Am I cynical? But I also think Burnham's already made a decision to keep the 2 in prison and will eventually say we have done everything we can, and pleased to say they will not be released. As a game to gain in popularity when he eventually tells people the truth. Brian says, regarding the early release of the scumbags who killed that policeman, I thought if they were still a danger to the public and showed no remorse, that would be reason enough to keep them behind bars. William has been in touch from London on Burnham. And I wonder what you think of his performance so far, William. You're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Oh, good evening, Peter.
Good evening.
And the great British public. Before I talk about Burnham, Peter, Kevin Foster, OK, he was the ex-immigration minister.
Yes.
He was a Tory MP. He's a brilliant talker.
Yes.
But please, Peter, next time he's on, ask him what he did to try and solve this.
Oh, I've asked him many times previously, William. Don't you worry. And the Conservatives dropped the ball. They failed on this one.
Yeah, he just waffles on. He's a great talker, and he really gets up my goat, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But Peter, with Burnham, I was right about Keir Starmer. And you know I spoke to you many times about Starmer, that he would be going. Burnham, to me, is a chancer, a comedian, and a bit of a coward. He's not asking one question that all the British people are worried about, the concerns that we're worried about, the mass illegal immigration, housing, the cost of living, everything that we really were worried about, jobs, security, pensions. And he just, all the time, he's umming and erring and umming and erring. It's just part of the establishment that it's just.
Do you think he has a plan, William, or is it all just TikTok videos and you know, Greg's orders? I mean, and T-shirts and eyelashes. Is there anything actually there?
There's no substance at all, Peter. Farage would have called straight away. If Farage was going to be Prime Minister, which I hope he is, and millions of us do, he would be calling straight away for the Cabinet to get together to have a national emergency about these illegal migrants. If you see, Peter, where I live in London, the whole place is an absolute dump. There are guys just hanging around everywhere, Peter. Everywhere, whether it's the parks, the town centres. There's no town centre anymore where I am. All the areas. The HMOs, it's just like a third world area, Peter. Burnham's a chancellor, a comedian, and he's just going to carry on doing this.
Is he going to revitalise the high streets, do you think, William?
No, the business rates are the rents and the business rates and the electricity and everything, Peter. No companies are affording it anymore, and people obviously are going online. But that, in the end, will cost everyone everything. The high streets are a thing of the past, Peter.
Okay.
We are all trying to bring back the past as we knew it when we was young, Peter. Through mass immigration or multiculturalism, this country is kaput.
William, listen, thanks for your thoughts there. I really appreciate that. It's a sad thought, but it's an interesting one nonetheless, and I really appreciate it. Elaine says, if Burnham brought in a new change to the law so that workers who have killed emergency workers cannot be released early instead of those guilty of manslaughter, I think that would ensure that it would only be those two scumbags affected, as not many are in jail for that charge. That is the law now. I think you do get a longer sentence if you attack an emergency worker, but it wasn't, I think, the case back when they committed that crime. Amanda in London says, good evening, Peter. How much longer is Andy Burnham going to insult our intelligence? All the ridiculous patronising window dressing will surely backfire very soon. Leslie says, why doesn't Labour realise it's their policies on tax, national insurance, business rates that have ruined the high street? I think Sarah would agree with you there. Stan the man in Cheshire says, Burnham is submitting all of us to his own ideology with no thought for the rest of the country. As Prime Minister, he should be listening to the people and stop being selfish because he conned his way into being Prime Minister in Stan's view. Michael's in Birmingham and has some thoughts on migrants and where they live. Michael, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Good evening, Peter. For some reason, my thoughts are a bit fuzzy. You might have to interpret what I'm trying to say for me.
Let's get through it together, Michael.
I'm a bit queasy about the kind of Crowborough protesters and these people in middle-class places complaining about. But I'm not against what they're saying. I mean, I'm in Birmingham. You know, migrants are all over the place, and frankly, we could do without them. But I don't like this message. If it sounds a bit NIMBY to me. That's what I don't like about it. It sounds a bit NIMBY. So it sounds like, you know, let's take Crowborough. I've got nothing against people of Crowborough, and I get where they're coming from. But I haven't heard them say, well, if they're not going to be here, you know, and if the government said, OK, we're not going to put them here, we're going to put even more in Brum, would they object to that?
I'm not sure they would, and I totally have the utmost respect for the people of Crowborough. I suppose the point is, and what Andy Burnham is saying, is this is such a big problem that it's not just a matter of putting them in the cheap hotels, the cheap homes of multiple occupancy or the cheaper ones, but actually all areas or lots of different areas. And actually, if you are someone who is saying, oh yes, no, we need to be totally understanding of people living in our area, well, actually, I know and you know, Michael, there are loads of people who, you know, Gary Lineker would be absolutely up in arms if there was a home of multiple occupancy in his street and there were asylum seekers living there. If there are asylum seekers going to the schools, well, I think his kids are older now, but if there are you know, sending their kids to the schools, hanging around on the streets, not having a job and not being productive, he would be absolutely he would be very, very worried about that. He would be incandescent. And actually, maybe what Andy Burnham is saying is, well, everybody needs to realise that this could be you, essentially. So the problem is much bigger. Maybe he's just being honest, or maybe that's me being cynical.
I mean, I think you've kind of like unpicked it in a way. Is that, look, I mean, I think they should be gone. They should be gone. They should be sent out of the country one way or another. And I didn't agree with Sebastian, the barriers in the way. It's for government to find a way around it, but I don't think this government wants to. Right, but they should be gone. But the fact is that, look, if they're dangerous, I keep hearing like they're dangerous. 7-year-old kids writing letters and the ladies and all that, and I get that. But if they're dangerous in Crowborough, they're dangerous in Birmingham.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, are my women and children, are we any less?
I think this point specifically, this point specifically, Michael, is about asylum seekers and people coming in and staying in those homes with multiple occupancy. It's not about people who've legally come to this country. It's people who are waiting to be processed, which is slightly different, isn't it?
I mean, what I would do with the solution is I wouldn't have them in HMOs. I'd have them in the hotels. They've got security companies, and they should enforce these people not leaving the hotel. Okay. And if you do leave the hotel, and if you abscond, well, your claim's automatically stopped.
Okay, Michael, yeah.
How about that?
Thanks for your thoughts there, Michael. Loads of people want to get in on this issue, and if you're one of them, please do give me a ring, 0344 499 1000. Lots on PC Andrew Harper as well and what's going to happen there. Robbie's been in touch and says, when a copper waves his family goodbye every day, the risk of not coming home is high, so coppers run into danger if they lose their lives. Politicians say we can do little to stop early release, but when an MP is killed, the killer gets a full life sentence, so that's the benchmark. A politician who has next to no danger of death gets a gold standard treatment. Why, says Robbie? Well, I do think politicians, as has been the case recently, are under a huge amount of danger. We need to do more to protect them and other people in the country as well. Jean in Hull says, I don't get where the media have said that Andy Burnham comes across in his interviews better than Starmer. I've just seen him on talk in an interview. It was as painful as Starmer and as awkward. Steve in Dorset says, I was just pondering why people keep saying Andy Burnham is a great communicator. It seems he stutters and ums and ers as much as Starmer did and sounds actually less convincing than his predecessor. He's not even going for the low-hanging fruit. He's picking up the windfalls. Why can't we just get some serious and convincing politicians anymore, says Steve in Dorset. Says, the Diet Coke is nicely chilled still, he says. Simon says, I've come to the conclusion that the immigration gangs have switched to the super dinghies because they have a backlog of orders. If demand is high, what do any businesses do? You increase your services, supply and demand, says Simon. Ernie says, I've just looked up why the police officer killers have to be released early. It's because it's the law. They weren't found guilty of a serious enough offence for them not to be exempt, and there's no exception to that rule. They could be kept in if they misbehaved in prison badly enough to get added time, which it seems they haven't. When they are released, they will be unlicensed and can be recalled if they commit another criminal offence or don't keep their appointments with the allocated probation officer, which they might find difficulty in doing. Being from the travelling community, in my opinion, it was what these wrong-uns were charged with. That is the problem. Well, manslaughter was what they were charged with. That is a very serious crime, Ernie, and I'm not sure how I feel. In fact, I know how I feel. I don't want people with manslaughter being released early at all, but the problem is prison capacity. Joanna in Salisbury says, hi Cardi P, hi Joanna. Whole tour of the UK spouting about the cost of living problem. Stop illegal and illegal migrants. Stop non-UK people getting benefits. Send the foreign prisoners home. Stop foreign aid and net zero. This plugs the money drain. Allow our people to be housed, including veterans. Lowering taxes. Job done. And we are going to talk about veterans in just a second. We're going to speak to a number of veterans about that problem with pensions. We identified it and talked about it last night. We'll talk more about that in just a second. Just before we go to a break, Dawn in Chelmsford says, I like your barber story earlier on. When I was a young lad, most boys asked for a Tony Curtis or a Boston. Both involved a cutthroat razor on the back of the neck. Lots of blood and cut spots. Great days, says Dawn. Yeah, it's when they do the shave. I like when they do the shave about once a month, and I get it done about once a month. But then they kind of spray like a lemon thing, like a lemon kind of aftershave almost. It really, really stings, but it's really good for your face as well. This is not something that women have to worry about, although there are plenty of other things in regard to hair removal that women will tell you. But there's an awful lot that we can discuss on all these topics, serious and not so serious. 0344 499 1000 if you want to get in touch and give me the benefit of your thoughts. And one of our producers says it's like what you clean your hands with at a curry restaurant, that face stuff. Yeah, I've done that before, where you clean your hands because you're eating too much naan bread. Maybe that's just me. Or you should just call it naan, by the way, because that just means bread. Anyway, all of this is irrelevant. We'll talk about veterans and their pensions in just a second. Stay with us.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who has been in touch. Lots on high streets as well. Sarah says the shops won't last if the government continues to not prosecute for shoplifting under £200. The police won't even arrest for it. What right-minded business person would open a shop with extortionate taxes and business rates only to have your stock stolen? Well, Sarah, it's a really interesting point. I have a friend who's a shop assistant, and if there was someone who was banned, the police banned the person from the shop a year ago. The person came back today, said, oh yeah, I'll just come in tomorrow. And that person, my friend, had great physical risk to herself, attempted, and she was in the shop on her own, attempted to get that person out of the shop. And that was risk to her, and then was really worried when the person was coming back tomorrow. She had to ring the person who was doing the shift tomorrow, this morning, and say, look, she says she's coming back tomorrow. That person was very upset by that. It's just one example of thousands of examples that are happening there. Sarah knows about it as well. I want to talk about the scandal we talked about yesterday. This is in regard to pensions for people who are veterans who've served our country with great bravery and distinction. We spoke last night to Peter and indeed to Hugh. And we're going to speak to Hugh again in a minute. He is the Chief Executive of We Served and a former British Army officer. Peter's back with us now. He's a veteran, as is Michelle Jarvis, who's going to tell us her story. Michelle, can you just tell me where you served and then why you left service and what has happened with your pension, please?
Originally, I was in the Royal Navy, did just over 5 years. Left for a bit and then rejoined into the British Army. I left on medical grounds last year, and you'd like to think, you know, considering they had a whole year to sort my pension out and get it put in place for leaving, they just basically gave me what's called a tier 1. So a bit of money and a see you later, even though they know that I've got a permanent brain injury and disabilities and was deemed fully incapacitated straight away. But they tried to hide the brain injury and put it down as anxiety. So I've had to fight for 14 months to get my pension, basically. So for service of just over 15 and a half years, it's took me another 14 months to fight to get some form of pension.
I mean, that is appalling. Why do you think this is happening? Is this just too much admin? Is this people not listening? Like, why is this happening?
Honestly, veterans is run by people who aren't veterans, for a start. So they have no idea.
And your complaint is primarily with the Department of Work and Pensions, I understand.
It's with the whole government, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, but the DWP is who you're dealing with this.
Yeah, and Veterans UK and the AFCS team, because you have to put in a claim for AFCS to see.
What's AFCS, just for people who don't know what that is?
So it's the Armed Forces Compensation Scheme.
Okay.
To see if they deem it as service attributable, which most of the stuff is, because you don't join with these injuries or conditions. Most of you have never heard of them, or your families have ever heard of them, but the military will literally just pass it off as, oh, well, someone in your family must have had it somewhere, or whatever. You know, anything to just fob you off and save the government money, which is what they're doing with the pensions to save the government money, is to hit the veterans, you know, with their pensions and tax them after all these years.
So hold on a second here. So you give over 15 and a half years service to this country in both the Navy and the Army. It is absolutely the case that you should have a pension. It is absolutely the case that you should have been paid, housed, had the right equipment when you were doing all of that. You are then in a situation where you're asking for your pension, which is a perfectly reasonable thing. It's taken you over 14 months to sort that out. That must have just been an admin nightmare. And what do you think, what does that say to you? What does that say to you, Michelle, when you think, hold on a second here, I put my life at risk for this country. Why can't they just sort out a bit of admin here?
It says to me that, in all honesty, the government is more interested in people that break into this country than the people that served it. They do not care. They would rather a veteran be homeless than give them their pension that they've earned. And the best part about it is when you do get some form of benefit, so as a single person, benefits are minimal anyway, especially if you own a house. So you can't get your rent paid or anything like that. And when you do get that bit of help, it's not going to cover your bills. And veterans do not care. They will drag out that appeal process. You know, it's 14 months. And then even when they do award it you, they'll hold on to that pension for another 7 to 8 weeks for no reason.
Let me just read out
just to make you feel a bit more.
I just want to be fair to the Department of Work and Pensions. We've asked them for a statement. I'm going to read the statement from them and then ask you what you think. A Department of Work and Pensions spokesman said, "We have enormous gratitude and respect for those who have served our country, and we want to make sure veterans get every penny they are entitled to. Lump sum payments are disregarded when assessing eligibility for universal credit for up to 12 months, and even longer if the funds are placed into a trust or annuity. Regular Armed Forces pensions intended to provide income in retirement are treated as unearned income and are taken fully into account in line with the approach for other occupational pensions." What do you make of that?
I think it's a disgrace. They say it's unearned income. So I get LWRTA at the higher rate, which is from last year. So I get £222 a month. But because I get that, I get help with my water, with prescriptions. But they're going to stop that because I get a small pension, because they class it as unearned income. So when I asked the DWP, I says, OK, so if I was able to, I can earn an extra £880 a month working, but I'm not able to work because of my brain injury and disabilities. They went, that's correct. I went, but my pension, which is substantially a lot smaller than that, you're classing it as unearned income. They went, yeah. So I went, so how does that make sense? I can go and earn 880 if I'm fit for work, but the pension that I've earned by serving this country is classed as unearned income, whereas I'd say I earned that getting a brain injury, PTSD, and everything else that goes with it. And
how did you sustain the brain injury? How did you sustain the brain injury? Was that on the line of duty?
No, I actually got meningitis, believe it or not.
Oh,
which is
I'm
just
so sorry
really
to hear that. Gosh. And you're battling PTSD as well from your time in the services.
Yeah, that is caused by service, even though they're trying to say they didn't cause it. They did, along with some other problems.
What a mess. Michelle, listen, thank you for... Sorry.
I'm going to go into that, though, because I've got like another case going on with that.
Okay, no, I understand.
But I find it a disgrace. You know, you've got people who can work part-time, who can earn an extra £880, and then people who cannot physically work, because some days you cannot physically get out of bed or your body's having a weird seizure on one side. And they say, well, that's unearned income. Well, it's not. I earned that serving the country.
Michelle, thank you for telling us your story, and I'm sorry to hear that you've gone through what you've gone through. I really appreciate that. I want to speak to Peter Sharples again now, who is a veteran who we spoke to last night. Peter, this is gaining traction. A lot of people are getting interested in this story. You told us your story last night, and clearly there are an awful lot of veterans who've been very badly treated by the government here. The Ministry of Defence, let me just read you what they have said and then I'll get your response to it. They said, "We recognise that this error may cause uncertainty for people. We have contacted all those affected and are providing support for anyone who requires it. Where payments have been made in genuine error, we have a responsibility to recover taxpayer funds and will always seek to do so in a sensitive and proportionate way, including through tailored repayment plans and one-to-one financial and welfare support from veteran services." What do you make of that, Peter?
Yeah, it's just more hogwash, to be honest with you. Anyway, thanks for having me back on, Peter. It's much appreciated. Yeah, it's just pure hogwash, you know. I spoke with Michelle yesterday. She told me her story. I've had another 4 veterans with literally the same story again today. More calls tomorrow to take from people who've texted me with similar stories. So we're not being... what am I trying to say? We're not going to accept what the DWP and what the MOD are saying. Absolutely not. It's just hogwash.
So what can you do about it?
Well, like I said to you, when I went to the tribunal, the judge turned around and said, "I'm not supposed to give you advice, but I will go for a judicial review."
Yeah.
Now, reading documents today, we were always told when we were serving that we accepted a lower pay rate so that our pensions later in life would compensate for that. So there's your paying in to the system. So it's got to be earned. Now, I was speaking to your producer on and off today and sending messages, you know, about where we are and that, and giving them and you know, it's clear this is a deliberate action, as I said to you last night. Now, if I was luckily able
Why do you believe it's deliberate? Why do you think that's clear?
Well, the MOD say it's earned. Parliament have said it's earned.
But if they're overpaying people and then asking for that money back, which is part of this, it's not the only thing, but it's part of this huge screw up when it comes to veterans' pensions, they're not going to do that willingly, are they? That's going to be a mistake rather than something that they're actually trying to do.
Issues, haven't we? We've got the Equinity with 1,000 veterans, and we've got the DWP with the 68,000 veterans. Out of 70 million in this country, Peter, right? 69,000 people who are veterans are being targeted.
Okay.
That's not by coincidence.
Okay.
You know, that's targeted. It has to be. And certainly when I said to you last night, I was very clear, and the judge said, yes, you did everything, and DWP said, yes, you were very honest with us, and blah, blah, blah. And then 12 months later, they come after you.
Okay. Let me just speak to Hugh. Thank you, Peter, for joining us again this evening. Peter Sharples, who's a veteran. Hugh Arday is Chief Executive of We Serve, a former British Army officer himself. Hugh, we're talking to both Peter again, great to talk to him again, and also Michelle earlier on. They are just two people who are going through this. How big do you think this problem is, Hugh?
Peter, good evening. There are thousands of people that are affected, and I must say, I'm not a pensions expert. It is quite a minefield, to say the least. But what we do at We Served is we try and give our veterans a voice. Mm-hmm. We try and give them the opportunity, and many don't have that opportunity. So we've set up a petition online, and we're putting together a team to effectively act on behalf of all the veterans. Now, I think as Peter might have said, Peter will have said, we're dealing with a number of organisations here. Whether it be Equinity.
It's a complex picture, isn't it? And you say you're not a pensions expert. I expect you know a heck of a lot more about pensions now than you did a year ago. The point, I suppose, Hugh, is that on its simplest level, for people who are just in their car or maybe in their van or at home thinking, I don't really understand this issue. At its simplest issue, you're talking about people who've served this country, who've been told you're getting a pension, and then they're not given the correct amount of money, or they're given too much and they're told to pay it back. It's a shambles, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, at the simplest level, if you're in your car listening, imagine you joined the armed forces 30, 40, 50 years ago as a young 16, 17, 18-year-old. And throughout your career, whether you were in the Falklands, the first Gulf War, Iraq, Afghanistan, you have been paying into a pension that you expect, when it's given to you by the government, to be correct.
Yeah.
Now, the fact is, an organisation or two or three, through maladministration, and they have a history of making these mistakes, have overpaid normal, working, everyday people. God knows the cost of living at the moment is hard enough. And now you're asking, Tommy Atkins or whomever to hand back thousands. I know of individuals who've been told to hand back over £100,000, Peter. That's just not possible for a mistake that, frankly, let's just say the government, because it's very smart, they need to own this mistake.
Yeah.
We're talking about, it's a lot of money to you and I, the man on the street, 5 million. It is not to the government.
It's nothing to them, as you correctly say. Hugh, listen, thank you very much for that. I'm sorry, we've just got to move on because I need to go to a break. But to Michelle, to Peter and to Hugh, I really appreciate it. They've got that petition. It's just started. It's just got a few names. But if you go to, if you search Cancel Armed Forces Pensions Overpayment Recovery or anything similar, it should appear. Also, the easiest way to do it, actually, is go on my Twitter, @Peter Cardwell. I was listening to Hugh at the same time, multitasking, but I've literally just tweeted it out, and it's on my Twitter right now. If you go to @Peter Cardwell on Twitter, you will find it. And I've said Veterans Pension Petition, as discussed on the talkTV programme just now. I am in the break going to sign up myself. If I can do that quickly enough in the break, we'll take some more calls as well. Or if you just search change.org petition Cancel Armed Forces Pension Overpayment Recovery, you will find it. We'll hear from a couple of callers on various issues in a second. If you want to get your voice on the air between now and 10 o'clock, 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
single sex basis on biological sex.
Yeah.
And therefore you cannot have people going into a women's space, which is for women only, who is not a biological woman.
I was wondering whether that interview was conducted on April Fool's Day, because I think it was a new low in the sort of...
A new low for low?
A new low for low, because, I mean, just the absurdity of not being able to ask a very basic question about the monarch of our country.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's speak to Tony in East Yorkshire, who's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Tony, I've literally just been handed an article that you were involved with in the Daily Telegraph last week. Can you just tell us your story, Tony?
Yeah, sure. I had spinal surgery in 2015, and when that happened, I became private carer for my son. And my wife came.
Do you know what, Tony? It's not a great line. We're going to try and get you back in a minute or two. Tony will hopefully come back to you. Let's go to Ken in Scotland. I understand you're a veteran, Ken.
Yeah, that's correct. I actually just seen the lady that was on just a couple of minutes ago talking about the Armed Forces Compensation Scheme. I actually come under the War Disablement Pension Scheme, which is a scheme that was set up before the Armed Forces Compensation Scheme, and it's to claim for any injuries you receive in service.
Okay.
Nice and simple. You put a claim into the MOD / Veterans UK, and if an injury is on your military medical file, within the rules of the Service Pension Order, straightforward it goes through. So I get up to like injury 14 or deterioration 14, and none are being accepted. And I was like, what's going on here?
What happened to you? Don't tell me every single thing, but if there are 14 of them, can. But just give me an example of what you did in service to this country and the injuries that you sustained.
I done 4 tours in Northern Ireland. 4 tours in Northern Ireland, left in 2003. First war pension claim was 2007, and I am still fighting to this day for my war pension.
Why is that? Why does it take so long? Why is there resistance in the system? What is it?
It's not resistance in a system. The staff within Veterans UK are toxic, very, very toxic and dangerous. If they don't want to process or accept a claim, they'll reject it, and it takes you to a tribunal, and that can take anything between 2 and 6 years to get to a first-tier tribunal.
Yeah, I mean, we need to speak to Veterans UK, and I think we probably will at some stage, but we don't have them here to put their version across. But one person has been in touch, says, I work for Department of Work and Pensions. It is a victim of the DEI scam. People don't know what they're doing. They've been hired if they tick a box, not whether they can do the job. But this, I mean, it's clearly a DWP issue. We've read out a statement from them. It's clearly a Ministry of Defence issue. It's clearly lots of different areas, lots of different parts of government not speaking to one another, not understanding that there are people like you, Ken, sitting there with injuries, having done 4 tours in Northern Ireland, and thank you very much for doing that, by the way, for keeping people like me safe and allowing an atmosphere and the peace process, which meant that my generation could grow up in peace. That is what the legacy of what you and your comrades did, Ken, and anybody who says anything else is wrong.
But the thing is, I was told all along I'm a one-off case.
Okay.
So my case was mentioned in Parliament. You can Google war pensions in Parliament and you'll see that. And then what happened is immediately I got £100 a week taken off my war pension after a sudden review. I then got a letter in the post for Veterans UK saying there's a call ban for life implemented on my file. And then I've been to probably 14 first-tier tribunals, and I've won every single one and got the injury accepted. And it just makes a mockery of the system to show that they're pushing veterans down a road they shouldn't be gone down. So I've set up a small closed support group. I think I've got 240 on it, and I'm getting between 5 and 10 veterans a week jumping on saying we're the same as you. Claims are taking 2 years. How do we get the paperwork in order? I mean, I spoke to a lad today. His whole file was put through a shredder. His whole military paper file. It's a system.
Crazy stuff.
It's way above the post office scandal. It is a way above the post office scandal.
Ken, listen, thanks for your thoughts on that. Tony, I think we have back from East Yorkshire. Tony, good to have you with us.
Thank you.
So go ahead and tell us your story.
Yeah, initially I had spinal surgery in 2015 to debulk a spinal cord tumour, and at that time I became the primary carer for my son, and my wife became the main earner. Terminal, we ended up on universal credit. Now, 3 months after my wife passed away, I had to change to a single person on universal credit. And it was 2 or 3 months after that, I got a call from the DWP, basically telling me that I hadn't declared my military pension. And I says, well, we filled the forms in properly.
Yeah.
We didn't
didn't hold anything back. Do you know what, Tony? I think this is a longer call, and I want to get all the information. I've got to speak to a guest in a few minutes, but I'm going to come back to you in about 20 minutes or so, and make sure that we get the full detail of what you're talking about. So, Tony, I'm going to ring you back. We're going to ring you back in 15-20 minutes, and we're going to get the whole story from you. This is not just a short call. This is a call I really want to get proper detail from. So Tony in East Yorkshire, we will come back to you. I want to talk in just a second about anti-Semitism because we have a guest standing by, but we'll come back to Tony. We'll get the full story from him, and we'll deal with this absolute scandal of people who've served our country.
It is therefore my honour to declare that the duly elected leader of the Labour Party is Andy Burnham.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much. I believe in all of you, and I am confident we can do it. Thank you very much. I have just come from Buckingham Palace, where I have accepted His Majesty the King's invitation to form a government. I know people at home are fed up with politics. I hear you, and I want to be honest with you. We have not been good enough, and we need to be better. We will be.
This man has no mandate whatsoever. He didn't stand on the 2024 general election manifesto. You cannot make the biggest change in British politics in 40 years without a mandate from the British people, and it will be only decent, right and proper to call a general election on that issue and to do it now.
Our fifth Prime Minister in 4 years. Blimey. And, well, look, we want him to succeed. But will this one be any different? Andy Burnham, the new head honcho, the speed this all happened, I know this is a well-trodden debate already, is actually breathtaking. 1 minute he was Mayor of Greater Manchester. What, a month and a bit ago he wasn't even an MP. The next he's holding keys to number 10 without the country ever really having a chance to scrutinise him in a prospective prime ministerial, nothing at all. We really know very little.
I think Burnham has to walk a fine line. I think that's probably what's going on, because if he were to sweep into Downing Street and say, I'm going to change everything, I'm going to fix everything, I'm going to do things different.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you so much to everybody who is calling in. We will get to as many of your calls, texts, tweets and voice notes in a second, as many as we can. We're going to talk about anti-Semitism too, Jewish children being victimised, and the fact that a head teacher of a school has told the study that he spends 90% of his time dealing with security for the primary school-aged children that he is dealing with. Absolutely horrendous. We'll talk as well about an academic at Cambridge University who, in my strongly held personal view, is much more dangerous than the fantasist Professor Arday. This is someone who believes that Western education is a threat to Muslims, who has condemned democracy and integration. She is now responsible for postgraduate research and education at Britain's top university. We've asked her for a comment. Lots to discuss, including veterans' pensions. We'll go back to Tony in East Yorkshire in a few minutes' time, as well, as we promised we would. PC Andrew Harper's killers is a big story as well. A big continuing story? Will they actually be released from prison early or not? So much to discuss. 0344 499 1000. You can text me at 7222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note, send me a WhatsApp text message. You can give me a ring as well on 0344 499 1000. And thank you to Muriel, who has sent me a tweet to say, instead of saying naan bread, just say naan, because naan means bread. That is what I said earlier on. She said, so we've been saying, do you want to bread with your curry? Mind blown. Yes, naan means bread. It is a word that means bread, so you don't need to say naan bread, you just need to say naan. Lots to discuss, as I say, from the sublime to the ridiculous. Stay with us here on Talk. Also the case with chai tea, it must be said, because chai just means tea. Would you like a mug of chai? Yes, not chai tea. Similarly with naan bread. Loads of those. If you can think of any more, do text me at 7222 with the word talk in your text. Regarding the veterans, Steve has been in touch saying the pensions being overpaid by £5 million, a drop in the ocean in the grand scheme of things. Yet the migrants who crossed in the mega dinghy are going to cost us taxpayers £91 million. It's disgusting. This country has got its priorities badly wrong. Loads of people getting in touch on all sorts of issues. I promise I'll come back to them. Didn't even mention a minute ago the fact that Andy Burnham says we all need to realise that migrants are coming to our streets. They are going to be distributed, asylum seekers, in lots of nicer, leafier areas than some of the places they've been already, although some of the places they've been sent to are lovely areas as well. But the story I want to talk about now, actually, is about anti-Semitism in general. We were told in a study recently that's gone up by a fifth, but some of the just disgusting, absolutely disgusting details of Nazi salutes to children, attacks that have been happening, and also the fact that a lot of people just don't realise that Jewish buildings, synagogues, community centres, schools have to have loads of security. I've seen it with my own eyes. It has to happen. It has to be there. It's often provided by a very good organisation called the Community Security Trust. There's been a big study of all of this, and now one head teacher has said that 90% of his time is spent on security, only 10% on education. Should be just not even reversed. I mean, far more than reversed. Jake Wallace-Simons is with us. He's a Telegraph columnist and author of Never Again. Jake, you're very welcome to the programme. Tell us your thoughts on this, because in some ways it's shocking, in other ways it's not shocking at all to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's shocking from one point of view, but as you say, it's no surprise. We've all known that for some years, Jewish schools, synagogues and so on have had to exist behind fortress-style security because of the threat to them. And I think that really the government needs to understand that in its demonisation, particularly of Israel, you know, since October the 7th, the government really, successive governments now, have spent far more of their time condemning and criticising Israel than condemning and criticising Hamas. That has an effect. You know, recognising a Palestinian state. Just a few days after, later, there was the Manchester synagogue attack. You know, that makes a difference, recognising a Palestinian state while Israeli hostages were still in the tunnels being held by Hamas, not demanding their release, not pointing the finger of blame where it should have been pointed from the beginning, which was at Hamas. This has an effect. So the government, I think, is guilty of, you know, fanning the flames with one hand and then reaching for a fire extinguisher with the other in terms of building higher and higher fences. And that's literally the case. Outside my old school, there are high fences. You know, I used to go to a Jewish school, to synagogues. The security there existed back when I was a kid, and now it's far greater because there's nothing being done to stop the hatred. In fact, the opposite is the case. The only solution the government seems to have is to protect Jews from the results of the phenomena that is either failing to control or exacerbating. And so I think that's where we find ourselves today.
Rather than dealing with the root causes, as you correctly say. This is a report by Sir David Bell, who has been talking for the first time about his ongoing government-commissioned independent review. He told the BBC he'd been struck by how many leaders of Jewish faith schools had told him security was their main concern, and sometimes education takes second place to that. I do worry about the future of those children who are being absolutely terrorised by anti-Semites. I wonder if we could talk as well a little bit about Baroness Berger, Luciana Berger, who was, speaking of terrorised, she was absolutely terrorised by a neo-Nazi. He says that Mr. Boonhill Payne says that he has seen the error of his ways. He was due to stand as a counsellor. That's now not happening. He's an advisor to Kemi Badenoch. What do you make of this? Because he has apologised now to Luciana Berger, but on a podcast. There are lots of times in the last few years he could have written her a letter or an email or asked to see her in person. He didn't do that. She is now asking Kemi Badenoch, hold on a second, if this guy is an advisor to you, am I going to bump into him on the parliamentary estate? What do you make of this?
I think it's a really complicated situation. I think all of us, in a fair-minded way, would have to say that it's possible to repent. It's possible to move beyond your past, particularly when he was young, when he committed these crimes. He went to prison for it. The judge said it was one of the worst cases of racial aggravated assault, intimidation that he'd ever seen. So there is room for redemption, I suppose. And yet, without knowing him, without knowing the real details, it's difficult to say whether he deserves that redemption or not. Now, obviously, Kemi Badenoch thinks that he does deserve redemption. He's now an advisor. But as Luciana Berger said, there is a gulf between having him as an advisor. I mean, some of these former extremists can be useful in terms of converting existing extremists out of their extremism. But there's a gulf between that role and being a counsellor. And it just feels to me like this was a problem the Tories didn't need to have. This was an own goal by the Tories. They didn't need to place this person in such a position as a prospective counsellor. They could have kept him as an extremism advisor. And of course, the problem would have been that if he would have carried on being an advisor and then would have reoffended, the Tories would have looked even more stupid. So it feels like a rare unforced error by Kemi Badenoch.
And speaking of Kemi Badenoch, you say it's an unforced error. Do you think this damages her in the minds of Jewish people who clearly previously, and I mean, I'm not Jewish as you know, but I've been very I've been given a lot of succor by the fact that she has stood up for Jewish people and against anti-Semitism on many occasions. It was really disappointing to me that she made this mistake. I could see the mistake politically, but also when it comes to her reputation as someone who just doesn't give an inch when it comes to anti-Semitism, and nor should any of us.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, I've got a lot of time for Kemi. I know her a little. I think she's fantastic. Her heart's in the right place. She's doughty and unafraid and principled. But I think that this move really has damaged her standing in the minds of Jews, because Jews are so beleaguered. There's so many people against us, both in politics and, as we've just discussed, in society. Jews really need friends. They're desperate for allies and friends. And as soon as somebody who they've seen as an ally does even a small hint of betrayal, that's how people feel it quite deeply, because they're so scarred and so beleaguered. I think that a lot of people will look at this and just roll their eyes and think, oh God, not her as well. So I think that there does need to be some rebuilding on her part for this unforced error. And yet I would strongly caveat that with my sense that she is, on the whole, a very stalwart friend of Israel and the Jews, and is, in my view, the best and most reliable political leader around at the moment. But yeah, this was definitely an unforced error that will harm her standing in the Jewish community, I think.
Well, Jake, in the words of Carole King, you've got a friend in me, so thank you very much.
You're not a political leader, are you, Peter?
Well, that's it. Yeah. No, I never will be. But there we are. Jake, thank you, Jake Wallace-Simons there, who's a Telegraph columnist and author of Never Again. Really interesting to hear from her. From him, I should say. What do you make of what he has said about Kemi Badenoch? 0344 499 1000. Gary's been in touch and says, just to be absolutely clear and for the removal of any doubt, Angela Rayner, who has bravely served this country with such great distinction for many years, will be keeping the £17,000 payoff she got when she had to resign as a government minister to avoid being sacked, a job that she is back in just a year later. The Department of Work and Pensions may be hammering our veterans, but at least we can all take comfort in knowing that she is being looked after, says Gary. Fern in Glasgow says the days where a woman can go and sit alone in a Glasgow park and enjoy the tranquil surroundings are gone. Rob in Hampshire says, I live 15 minutes from my nearest town. How can I live in a 15-minute town? Gareth from Doncaster, but currently in Portugal, says the high street is dead and always has been. The best answer, match Fremont Street in Vegas. Casinos, drinking, entertainment, always busy. Penny says, what is this with dishwashers not being used between 6 and 8 o'clock? No, this is an energy company saying that tomorrow, during the eclipse, which will happen between 6 and 8, we're told anyway, don't use your dishwasher because there won't be enough energy. I mean, I think, Penny, if you want to use your dishwasher, I think you're probably all right. Clayton says the Greens love the illegal migrants. I call them on what they are. So why don't they build camps on Well Street Common and Victoria Park for them all, says Clayton in Dartford, referring to a couple of areas of East London there. Leslie in Hartley says, I was quite angry when I heard Andy Burnham's comments about middle classes, but interested in the points that your guest raised. My only question is, how much longer can they keep coming? Martin in Nuneaton says, I think the phrase that these criminals lose their human rights is incorrect and misleading. When you lose things, it is an accident. This is no accident. Better would be that they forfeit their human rights, says Martin. Another person says, for decades, successive governments have failed the voters. They've not listened to what specifically they've been asked for when it comes to migration. And here we are at this pivotal moment in this country's history where people are about to do something about it themselves. This was coming for years. No one's listening. Well, they'll be listening very soon. Nige says, you should have asked Sebastian earlier on what he thinks of fairness. Why do we offer more in the UK than they do in Europe? Just make that fair across the board and then they won't have the pull factor. Another Martin says, did Sebastian happen to live in Francis Road? I don't know. I mean, you're talking about an area of London there when it felt like in the East End. Joe says, Sebastian was talking absolute rubbish. Hull is our nearest city. It's a dump. No one I know goes there to shop anymore. Large parts of the city centre have been pedestrianised. Druggies, dropouts, immigrants have made it a no-go area. HMOs are moving into our area. Nobody wants them near our schools. I talk to many people with my business. That is all they talk about. Stephen has praised my translation skills. He wrote something earlier in a message and I, let's just say, downgraded it slightly to nonsense. I do that quite a lot, Stephen, because we are obviously subject to Ofcom and can't be saying swear words most of the time. Anyway, the odd one here or there is sort of ish, kind of all right. James, the producer, keeps me right, who, by the way, has done a heck of a lot of work on this veteran story, so well done to him for that. Bill Hammond in Ipswich says, wear a mask, don't use a dishwasher, it is called control. Leslie in Hartley says, what a ridiculous thing to say, we can't use dishwashers during an eclipse. The sun eventually goes down every night anyway, and we manage all right. Gary says something doesn't add up here. When Labour came into office in July 2024, they claimed that prisons were 99% full, which means there was some spare capacity, although not very much. Now the Labour mouthpiece that you have in the studio claims the Labour government has added roughly 3,000 prison places since then. And we've been told by the likes of Starmer and Mayor Khan that the crime rate is falling. So why is there a capacity problem in our prisons, especially when you consider that according to the MOJ, between September 24 and October 25, nearly 40,000 prisoners were released early. Who exactly is being locked up? None of this makes sense. Paul also says, how can anybody take our Andy seriously? He's like a college schoolboy trying to dictate in the adult world. We'll take a break now, and as promised, we will go back to Tony in East Yorkshire. We'll hear his full story. I've got the details here in front of me. I'm going to read it during the break, and then we're going to speak to him properly about what happened with his pension. Didn't want to do it just in a couple of minutes. I wanted to do it properly. Tony's on the line. We'll speak to him next, so stay with us here on Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who's been in touch. Right, we are properly going to speak to Tony now from East Yorkshire. He served in the Queen's Own Hussars Cavalry Regiment for 13 years. He's told us that his wife very sadly died. And after that, he was contacted by the Department of Work and Pensions about their decision to, in effect, strip you, Tony, of your military pension. That's basically what happened.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, they contacted me, told me that I never declared it. So
what happened then?
Well, they reduced my monthly payment by the amount of my military pension, and I'm currently paying them back for the overpayment.
How much did you owe them because they had miscalculated it incorrectly?
Well, it would have been a lot more, but I wrote to my local MP, Sir David Davis, and he wrote to the DWP, and the answer he got was basically saying that the DWP class it as unearned income, and therefore it's reduced at 100%. But what did come from that, they only went back to take the money back as far as the claim in my own right. Otherwise, if they'd have gone back to when we first started, when I first got my military pension, I reckon I would have owed them about 20,000.
Okay. So you're in a situation.
I only owed them a few months.
So your benefits, I think, I'm just reading in this Telegraph article that you were part of as well, your benefits were reduced by £521 a month, which is the value of your military pension. What did that mean to you to not have that money?
Well, it was potentially going to make me homeless. It left me with not even enough money to pay my rent and my council tax. It just wasn't sufficient. And when I asked through the journal, what do I do for food, I was advised to reach out for charities and food banks. That was the official advice from the DWP.
So hold on a second, let me just get this right. Tony, tell me if any of this is wrong, okay? I don't want to get this wrong.
Yeah.
So you gave 13 years service to this country.
Yeah.
After you came out of that, your wife died. Yeah. You had spinal surgery. You became the primary carer for your autistic son while your wife was the main breadwinner. Then your wife had terminal lung cancer. She was no longer able to work. The family became eligible to receive certain benefits, which is perfectly fine. Your wife very sadly died 2 years ago, 2024. You contacted the DWP to update them with a change of circumstances and to move the family's universal credit entitlement to your own name. You did exactly the right thing. At that point, your benefits were reduced by £520 a month. And you were thinking, hold on a second, how much more, I would imagine, you were thinking, can life throw at me at this point?
Well, I tried to preempt all the problems I was going to have. I knew I was going to have financial problems, but I didn't realise the extent. I spoke to the local council, the local housing officer, and basically, if I didn't pay my rent, I'd be evicted. If I didn't pay my council tax, I would end up in court. But I didn't have enough money to cover both. The council at the time didn't think I was eligible for any reduction in my council tax, but at the same time, they sent me a food parcel.
So what happens now, Tony? What is your situation right now?
Well, it's not as bad as it was, because since then I get limited capability for work and working activity, and I also get PIP. So financially, I'm getting by.
Yeah.
The military pension would make a big difference. But this is a question that I've asked the DWP, and I haven't had a fully answer from them yet, because they seem to avoid questions. And I've also wrote to David Davis MP again, and I got a very similar reply to before, but the question I was asking was totally different. Because I'm in the receipt of limited capability for work and working activity, I'm allowed to earn £427 before there's any deductions for any other money earned over £427, which is deducted at 55p in the pound. So my question is to the DWP and Sir David Davis is, what is the difference between me physically going out to work to earn that money and me receiving my military pension?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't sound. And I'll tell you what the other thing is. I've spoken to, you're now I think over the last couple of days, I've spoken to 3 people who are affected by this, and 2 other people who know quite a lot about it. So what I'm seeing as a bystander here is reasonably new to this story and what is happening to you. And I'm progressively more horrified by what I'm hearing. It seems to me that the Department of Work and Pensions, they seem to just be kicking people when you're down. You know, you reported the death of your wife. Michelle talked about PTSD on duty. You needed support. You needed them to be there for you. That's the point of the Department of Work and Pensions. We're in a situation where they have said, and I'm going to read you their statement, Tony. I read this out earlier, but I better read it out again for balance, and I'd love your thoughts on it. DWP spokesman said, "We have enormous gratitude and respect for those who have served our country, and we want to make sure veterans get every penny they're entitled to. Lump sum payments are disregarded when assessing eligibility for universal credit for up to 12 months, and even longer if the funds are placed into a trust or annuity. Regular armed forces pensions intended to provide income in retirement are treated as unearned income and are taken fully into account in line with the approach for other occupational pensions." What do you make of what they have told us this evening, Tony?
Well, some of it's just lip service. And the DWP are actually the only government department that class it as unearned income. You can do a simple search on Google and it will tell you that the HMRC class it as earned income.
Mm-hmm.
We know the MOD and Parliament class it as earned income because Peter Sharples has had a letter from both of them.
Yeah, Peter, who we heard from earlier on in the programme, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it appears that the DWP are the only government department that are classing it as unearned income. I mean, in the letters that Peter's got from the MOD and Parliament, it says it's a form of deferred payment for service.
Okay.
That's what it says in the letter.
Listen, Tony, thank you for sharing your story with us, and thank you for being so honest and straightforward with us and telling us exactly what has happened to you, and a lot of it's very painful stuff. I wish you well, I wish your son well, and all of those in your family as well. I should say that an MOD spokesman said to us earlier today, we recognise that this error may cause uncertainty for people. We have contacted all those affected and are providing support for anyone who requires it. Where payments have been made in genuine error, we have a responsibility to recover taxpayer funds, and we will always seek to do so in a sensitive and proportionate way, including through tailored repayment plans and one-to-one financial and welfare support from Veterans Services. Steve has been in touch and says, now that migrants will outnumber the communities and villages they move to, does the Great Replacement conspiracy theory sound so far-fetched? It is a conspiracy theory, I'm afraid. Michelle says, I just can't believe it. I switch on Talk to give it a try again and your guests are laughing. No guffawing about housing invaders or what they deem asylum seekers. The same men who jumped off a boat who are likely wanted for crimes in their own countries, the ones that are sexually assaulting our women and young children, the ones that might stab someone and have done. Are they really finding it funny? Because I'm not. Will they honestly house these men? I'm gobsmacked and disturbed. It's the biggest crisis in the UK, and some of us dare not go out alone. Michelle, everything you say about the danger is absolutely right. They weren't laughing at that. They really, really weren't. I'm glad you're back with us as well, and good to hear from you again. Ali says, why is it that 650 MPs can go against the population and do their own thing, elected or not? They should do what the people want, not their own view on things. Hold a referendum on the migrants, see how people feel. Fran in West Sussex says, is Andy Burnham trying to provoke a strike in the prison system? Andy in Glasgow says, slopey shoulders Burnham. All he is doing is passing the buck. The UK government, and in particular the Home Office, should be shutting down nail bars, vape shops, barbers, car washes, etc. Parliament makes the laws. All this rubbish about who can and cannot be released is entirely in the hands of the government. Assaults on emergency workers already attract a higher sentence, and therefore when it comes to early release, the same should apply. on high streets, quite a few people getting in touch. And Gary says if all we had ever known is online and out-of-town shopping, then someone went onto Dragon's Den trying to flog the idea of setting up the traditional high street, they'll get laughed off the show. That's the challenge that the high street faces now, why it's pointless for Burnham to try to recreate what we had even as little as 20 years ago. It's just not what shoppers want anymore because it's not as convenient as the alternatives. Lisa in Cardiff has some thoughts on high streets and has given me a shout on 0344 499 1000. Lisa, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Good evening, Peter. Lovely. I've spoken to you before, but not for a while.
Well, good to have you back on the programme. What would you like to say?
Just about the high streets, right? It's so tragic. You know, I'm sort of ringing from Cardiff, as you know, and I can remember in the 70s there was a road called Clifton Street. I frequently went there every Saturday to shop, and it is now a no-go zone. You just don't go there, right? And there's another road, City Road, again, marvellous. It's like being in Eritrea. Not being racist, however, these are areas we just don't go to anymore. And then I live near Pontyclean, which is lovely.
When did all of this change? What was it?
This changed decades ago with, right. Okay. Never mind the Labour, Tories, they're all the same, right? This has been coming for 30 years plus, I'd say. You know, I think 70s was great, 80s were marvellous, and then it just went from there. That's when it started. Okay. And so I've got a lovely neighbourhood in Pontyclean, which has got entrepreneurs, wonderful. So it was a little bit drab a few years ago, but it's been rejuvenated. Great businesses, the Thirsty Elephant plug, right? It's a fabulous little village.
Yeah.
But, you know, if we were to have a migrant camp outside it, it'd be ruined.
Yeah.
And I felt so sorry on Kevin, I think it was Kevin's show before, the lady that rang with living in a village of 700 people, and they've got 1,500 migrants going there.
So where should the migrants go?
Oh, God. You know, I don't want to sound racist. We can't be a haven for the world.
Not a single thing you've said, Lisa, is racist. Please do not worry about that. If you say something racist, I will say to you that you have said it. I don't think you're going to say it.
Because, you know, I've said to you before, my stepfather was Jewish, came from Nazi Germany, lost his parents and brother in the
I'm sorry to hear that, Lisa. There are so many people. Let me just before you go on, Lisa, I just want to interrupt you very briefly. There are loads of people like you, Lisa. There are loads of people who are scared to even say this, who are scared to even talk about this because they'll be labelled racist. Not a single thing you've said this evening or on any other occasion that you've been on this programme has been racist, Lisa, and I want to reassure you of that. And if you go over the line, which I have no doubt you will not, it's my job to bring you back, okay? So just you say what's on your mind, okay?
You know, it's just, the thing is, we are not a haven. We are such a wonderful nation, Great Britain. We are forgiving, we're kind, we're generous, too generous. But we can't we can't solve the world's problems and be a haven for people. I understand why people want to come here, but it's got to stop. It's just, and there will be, this is what concerns me, there will be massive civil unrest. I feel it boiling.
And then they'll say, where did all that come from, those horrible, nasty, racist people? And I don't want there to be civil unrest. You don't want there to be civil unrest.
Nor me.
But we're in a situation where these things do boil over. We had a texter earlier on who said time and time again, the politicians have been told, please sort this out. Now you have the Prime Minister of this country saying, well, everybody needs to take their fair share. It's an issue of fairness. I don't know about you, Lisa, but I feel I fairly contribute to this country economically. I do some volunteering. I try to do a good job.
Yes,
you know, as do you, as do so many thousands of people who are listening to this programme right now and watching this programme.
Yeah,
but where's the reward? Where's the reward for that?
Before, right, I'm a driving instructor. My fuel bill is £800 plus a month. My fuel bill before I even take a wage. Right? Yeah. I would be better off on benefits, but I'm not going to go on benefits because I'm a worker. Right? But my it's really hard for me to make money because the costs are so high.
Yeah.
But I just feel, oh God.
But but that should never be the case. It should never be the case where you're saying, right, well, I'd be better on benefits, but as a matter of principle, you know, it should be, and good for you for doing that. And I know a lot of people who feel that way, many of whom who watch and listen to this programme.
Yeah.
But the problem is that there are loads of people who don't feel that way, who say, well, what's this for? You know, stuff this for a game of soldiers.
Well, the thing is, they say they're doing it, so I'll do it. Well, no,
exactly.
It's costing us all money.
Exactly.
Right? But of course, Peter, great show, right? And
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. Always good to. You ring me anytime, Lisa, and I appreciate your call. Bit of breaking news now, and every police chief has apparently called on the Prime Minister to prevent PC Harper's killer's release. This is a damning opening letter. The policing community across Britain has come together to demand that Jesse Cole and Albert Bowers be exempted from eligibility for early release. This is the joint letter saying there's a profound strength of feeling across policing about those responsible for PC Andrew Harper's death benefiting from arrangements that could see them released substantially earlier than expected. I don't know if this is every police chief in England or the UK. I'll find that for you out between now and after the break. It's every police chief in the UK. So it's Police Scotland, it's Police Service in Northern Ireland, it's the police services in Wales and in England as well. On Tuesday, the Prime Minister told his new Justice Secretary, Alex Norris, to find a solution to keep PC Harper's killers behind bars in time for Parliament returning in September. So that's every police chief in the whole of the UK. Lots on that. Just before we go to the break, I just want to play a quick voice note from Kev on migrants. This is what Kev has to say.
I think we need to let the boats stop themselves. And the way of doing that is come out of the ECHR, cancel all the contracts for the hotels and HMOs, put them into tented accommodation, basic amenities, basic healthcare and basic everything. Keep them secured, even if they went into the camps, as long as they're secured, and do not get free roam, because we don't know who they are, where they've come from, or even what they've done in their past. They ought to get processed within a couple of weeks. Anybody that comes over with no documentation should instantly be deported. Anybody that doesn't qualify for asylum, then again, should be deported. Anybody else, accept them in. It's quite simple, but the government will not do it, and it's wrong.
Thank you for that, Kev. I really appreciate it. In just a second, we're going to talk about something else, another big story. This is after the Jason Arday scandal at Cambridge University, Professor Jason Arday, who was unmasked as a fantasist and a plagiarist. Well, The Spectator this evening has revealed that a former supporter of the terror group Hizb ut-Tahrir, now a banned terror group, has been appointed Assistant Research Professor of Education at Cambridge. She says that Western education is a threat to Muslims. She's condemned democracy and integration and criticised British schools for teaching pupils that child marriage is wrong. Stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who has been in touch, and that breaking news is that every police chief in the UK, all of them, all the forces, every single force, including the Nuclear Deterrent Force and the British Transport Police, all of the forces, Police Service in Northern Ireland, you know, even in Somerset Police, all of them have called on the Prime Minister to prevent PC Harper's killer's release in a damning opening letter. But we're going to talk about another story now. This is after the Jason Arday disaster. Professor Jason Arday, the plagiarist and fantasist, new evidence that things have gone deeply wrong at Cambridge University. Dr. Farah Ahmed, who we have, of course, contacted for her thoughts on this, she has explicitly attacked Western education as a threat to Muslims. She's condemned democracy and integration. She's criticised British schools for teaching pupils that child marriage is wrong. She's a former supporter of Hizb ut-Tahrir. It is now banned as a terror group. No suggestion that she has ever supported it when it's been designated a terror group. But she has been appointed Assistant Research Professor of Education at Cambridge. She's now responsible for postgraduate research in education at Britain's top university. Some of the stuff that she has said: she says that the national curriculum has been, in 2002, she said it was a form of systematic indoctrination to build model British citizens who will seek to actively take part in the implementation of secular capitalist system in British society. Such a system will not be suitable to the needs of Muslim students. She says that British schools should be attacked, well, not attacked, but she's certainly attacked them verbally anyway, for teaching that polygamy or marriage under the age of 16 is archaic and discriminatory to women. Well, I mean, it is. It is archaic and discriminatory to women. Religious tolerance, she wrote, is primarily pushed in religious education. Islam is taught as a religion like any other, putting its value on the same level as Christianity, Buddhism, Judaism, Hinduism, Sikhism and the like. English is one of the most damaging subjects a school can teach. Fairy tales reflect secular and immoral beliefs which contradict the viewpoint of Islam. Romeo and Juliet, she says, advocates disobeying parents and premarital relations. Science is a problem as well, she believes, because in the teaching of evolution, Muslim children will be exposed to ideas that contradict Islam. Boys and girls may be asked to work together. As Muslim parents, we try to protect our children from the rubbish that Western society encourages. Well, she has been asked for comment on this and hasn't responded. Understand she may be on holiday at the moment, but a spokesman for the Faculty of Education in Cambridge has told us the faculty is committed to academic freedom and freedom of speech within the law. All members of our community are encouraged to exercise their rights to freedom of speech, including to challenge ideas or theories they disagree with through scholarship and robust debate. In 2023, Dr. Ahmed and Cambridge organised a conference to unlearn conventional teacher education and move forward Islamically grounded teacher development, attacking the secular neoliberal system of education as anti-metaphysical, saying that teachers need to recenter our focus on preparing the Muslim learner for everlasting life after death. This isn't just anybody. This is the Assistant Professor of Education at Cambridge University. Jason Arday has damaged a lot of lives. I'm not saying for a second he hasn't damaged a lot of lives. There are a lot of people who say that they haven't been marked correctly. There are people who have been duped by him. There are people who've given money to causes he says he's raised money for. He's lied to a lot of people. This, to me, seems more sinister. We haven't heard from her. We did contact her. I've just read out the statement there from the Faculty of Education at Cambridge University. Let's find out what a former colleague of Jason Arday thinks of this development. That's Dr. Lisa McKenzie, academic and author, who's with me now. Lisa, let's start with Dr. Ahmed. What do you make of this?
I think it's another example. What we've seen with Jason Arday, those of us who've worked in academia for a long time, I've been there for 20 years, over 20 years. We've seen this constantly. Particularly in sort of the humanities and social sciences. I'm a sociologist. Unfortunately, a lot, particularly elite universities, it's always at elite universities. It's not actually in the post-92s where all the teaching happens. It's in the elite universities where, I've got to say it, people don't like me to say this, but it is white, middle-class liberals who are gatekeepers, who believe that their job is an activism rather than an education. So they think that their job is somehow about changing ideas and changing policies through activism, not through education. And, you know, over 25 years I've been in education and I've watched this constantly. And like I said, it's not in the post-92s. It is definitely in the elite universities. And that's why you're seeing this in Cambridge, in Oxford, in Durham, where I worked, Glasgow, Edinburgh, where you've got these very powerful, actually, gatekeepers in education in the elite universities. And they get to decide what causes they want to bring in. And this is what we can see now.
When you hear some of the things that Dr. Ahmed says, do you believe that's academic freedom, freedom of speech within the law? Are you happy with her expressing her opinion, even though I would imagine that you and I disagree with basically every word she said?
No, I think she can definitely she can say what she thinks, but how that then manifests itself in the classroom and how that manifests itself in the department, that's a very different thing. Because what she's doing with the education, she's campaigning. Now, a lot of academics do, you know, academics do have a, you know, they have a view on the world, and they do talk to their students about that view. But one of the things that we should be teaching students, and that I teach myself actually, is that critical thinking.
Yep.
That you see the world as it is, and then you question it, and you say, how did we get here? And I think this is what we need to do with her. And we need to look at the position she's in, the things that she says, the things that she's teaching, because she's not saying these things in private. They're actually organising seminars and symposiums to continue her ideas in the university itself. And so therefore, we need to be critically thinking about that. How did we get here? How did we get into the top universities in the world where this type of activism, this sort of narrowness of thinking, this dogma, religious zealotry, how did it get there? It's not good for students. It's not good for the university. It's not good for research. And it's definitely not good for other academics.
Tell us about working with Professor Arday. You came across him a number of years ago. Are you surprised? Tell us the story there, and then tell us if you're surprised at what has transpired in the last few days and weeks.
No, I met Jason Arday in 2019. We both went for the same job at the University of Durham, a very elite university. I'm going to be honest, when I walked in the waiting room and I saw him there, I knew that he was getting the job. I knew that. And that's really sad. It's really sad that actually a lot of academics now know that because of the university's sort of push for tick boxing to make sure that there are black academics. And again, these are elite universities. The post-92s are not like this. These are elite universities. That I kind of thought that the job was going to be given to him because Durham University had very little diversity. But the week after the interview, I was phoned by Durham and they said to me, we've persuaded the university to give 2 jobs out. So myself and Jason was both employed. We're both in the department. Very nice guy. And again, people don't know what to make of that. Really nice, gentle, lovely guy. But I didn't know who he was. Sociology in this country is quite a small subject, and we kind of know who each other is. You know, what research we do, what work we do. I didn't know him. So I looked at what he wrote, what he'd written. 2 articles, 2 very, very poor articles that I was surprised was published. And you know, when you compared that to me and the other candidate who didn't get the job, you know, there was questions to be asked. There was definite questions to be asked. He was not at the level that you would imagine going for that type of job at that university.
So when you see what's happened, I mean, you must be... Are you astonished, or are you sort of thinking, actually, this chimes with what you've seen and heard?
I'm astonished at the level of we've got to this. You know, the running and the marathons and the broken leg and the brain tumours and the beating up and you know, locked-in syndrome. I'm astonished at all of that, but I'm not surprised at the academic part of it. The fact that there was lots of plagiarism, the fact that some of the research was made up, that, you know, that it was very poor academic research, and there's no rigour there. Wasn't surprised at that, but how the story is manifested with this, you know, real Walter Mitty character. You know, I'm not sure I believe anything. Now, I don't know what is true here now. I don't think any of us do.
Very interesting to talk to you, as always, Lisa. Thank you. Dr. Lisa McKenzie there, academic and author, former colleague of Jason Arday there. Carl in Richmond says if the UK decide to leave the ECHR, the formal withdrawal process could take as little as 6 months once the notice is given. In my view, something this significant should be put directly to the British people in a referendum. Let the people hear the arguments for staying and leaving, understand the consequences, and make the decision democratically. If we can hold a referendum on EU membership, there is no reason why the future of our membership of the ECHR should not also be put to the people. Gary says, whatever the rights and wrongs of distributing illegal migrants, because that's what they are, around the country fairly, the bottom line is that there is a reason why they tend to be sent to poorer areas, and that's because it's cheaper. You start housing these asylum seekers in middle class areas and the cost is going to go through the roof, because everything from labour to land and property more expensive. Mark in Cambridgeshire says, regarding military pensions, I receive one and have for 20 years. Each year I receive a statement of any rise and what I will be paid each month. How would that be my responsibility to check whether it's right? Brian says the French should be taken to task over their inaction to stop these mega boats because of the danger to life. If just one of these boats gets in trouble, there will be multiple casualties which they will be responsible for. Another Gary says the same thing has been happening to many veterans in a war pension. Veterans UK award a payment or an injury, and then they after they do their own review, take the money off an injured veterans war pension. You can't complain, it's all kept in-house. MPs don't listen. Another person says approximately 1,500 people are born every day in the UK. If 50,000 migrants arrive in total this year, it is equivalent to 33 days of UK births, 1 month. That's about 8% of births as an equivalent during the year. The stat is hidden and being deliberately because it is being hidden deliberately because 40,000 arriving into 70 million sounds much better. Gordon in Taunton says, I'm not buying the dual capacity fallacy. It is a dead cat topic. If HMRC had a capacity issue, they would they early release and cancel tax bills? If the council collection was unable to cope, would they cancel council tax bills? Pantomime politics is not just reserved to PMQs. Joe in Shrewsbury says you can alter the dynamic of the high street quite easily by altering the demographic of the high street. Take out all of the nail bars, vape stores, Turkish barbers and give us back our British way of life. Tea shops, pubs, things we hold dear. It's not rocket science, but it is a smokescreen for Andy Burnham not answering questions about illegal immigration. Give us the answers we need, Prime Minister. You cannot sort out the high street without sorting out illegal immigration. And Lee says, who on earth is running Cambridge University? It needs to be shut down. Ashton says, if PC Harper's killers are kept in prison, but other people convicted of manslaughter aren't, then wouldn't the government open themselves to the risk of being sued for discrimination, as they've acted on this high-profile case but not others? We shouldn't forget the other killers are being let out that didn't have such high-profile coverage. Ashton, I think that message is something that the government will come to perhaps not consider fully, and I think they'll come to regret what they're doing now. I don't believe that PC Andrew Harper's killers should be let out. I've signed a petition to that end. But if they make an exception for those two people, well, then they're going to reap the whirlwind legally, and that's going to cost you and me money this country does not have. We'll take some more calls, and we'll speak to Petri Hoskin in just a second. Stay with us.
This about you approving of Andy Burnham going on a holiday?
Yes, I do. I've written an article for the newspaper. I think you're wrong. I think Carl Turner's wrong.
Why?
Why? Because people need holidays and we want politicians
15 days? 15 days. What nonsense are you writing in the paper?
Do you want to take it?
What is he, an oil rig worker? 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off? You don't think he'll come to regret this holiday? Let me tell you, he will.
I'd rather take it now than in October, and I want our politicians to be like normal people taking a holiday in the summer, but we'll get into all of that.
That's absolute rubbish.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Kath has been in touch and says the Cambridge Assistant Professor for Education does not seem to have read Romeo and Juliet. Not much of an academic is she. In the story, they get married before their relationship. Perhaps she does not like that they choose to marry without permission from parents. Must be an alien concept for her, says Kath. Maybe she misplaced her copy and said, "Wherefore art thou Romeo and Juliet" copy. Another person says, I keep saying this, but why are the government not listening? This is deliberate. It's crystal clear. They can see the public don't want this ridiculous porous border invasion. We told them for decades to sort it out, and they didn't, and they continue to not listen. So please, someone answer me why. Why do they not listen and gaslight us being some shining light of democracy? This is not democracy. Anne Archway says, main deception is Burnham refers to asylum seekers and refugees. These men are neither. They're illegal immigrants. We want them deported. Mike and Lincoln says, in the vein of naan and bread, when I see a sign saying German bratwurst sausage, it drives me bonkers. The German word for sausage is Wurst. Thank you, says Mike and Lincoln. And Paul in Plymouth says, I can't stand people who say PIN number, personal identification number. Come on, people, get it right. It's not hard. That is Paul in Plymouth. Let's go to Nigel in London, who has some thoughts on what's going on in the prison service and crime and justice. Tell us your thoughts, Nigel. Hi, Nigel, are you there? Nigel in London? No, he's not there. Let's go to Joan in Sunderland, who has some thoughts on the High Street. Joan, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hello again.
Hi, Joan.
High streets are dead. Here in Sunderland, the big names have gone. So if you need anything special for a wedding or what have you have to go to the retail parks out of town or online. But not only is it our town centres being affected, local shopping parades like where I live, they're being invaded by Turkish barbers, vape shops, nail bars. You can see a queue on a morning in a particular shop where people are buying cheap cigarettes and then you never see another soul in all
Joan,
day.
what should be on your High Street? What would you like to see there?
Well, Debenhams have gone, Marks and Spencers have gone, Argos, Mothercare, all the other things like that. And they've just gone.
Whose fault is that, do you think, Joan? Is that just people who are buying things online, going to these out-of-town places? Is this the fault of the shops that are there now, or just because so many people have voted with their feet, or they're staying at home and ordering things online?
Well, I think online business has affected high street. You can't say other than that. But as I say, you can't shop in a store when it's decided to pull out.
Yeah. Where do you shop, Joan? Where do you get your groceries and things?
My daughter takes me to the retail park, and I get my groceries. Other things, we either go to Dalton Park, which is a Seam, or we go to Boundary Mill, which is a Shiremoor.
Okay.
She buys things online. I don't. I'm not into that.
Yes.
But as I say, it's all these things. The whole of your life seems to have changed.
It certainly has, Joan, and the question is, how much more does it change? Just a quick final call. Thank you, Joan. We'll talk more again, but I just want to get Nigel's back, and just before Petri Hoskin comes in, Nigel, you have about a minute to tell me your thoughts. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm going to race ahead then, Peter. Thank you. I think Andy Burnham has woken up with like a gone-off sausage roll in the fridge. It stinks. He's realised that the whole police community, the whole prison community, the whole relatives of police officers, he's going to lose as voters. That's why he suddenly wants to do something. A week ago, he said, or 10 days ago, I'm going to review it. Now he says he's going to get the Justice Minister to look at it. I think it's a total disgrace. In relation to the High Street, I think the High Street is self-governing, Peter. I think what can be done for the High Street is simple. Reduce business rates and give people the opportunity to park their cars. Because they can't park their cars, they aren't going to go there. And finally, if I may, about prisons, if you've got such a special relationship with America, Why don't we send them to America?
Well, Reform
Americans would
UK,
love
we're
them.
talking about El Salvador there as well. Very interesting thoughts there. Nigel, thank you for them. Thanks to everybody who's contributed. I'm sorry we just haven't had time for all the calls, texts, tweets and voice notes that we've got. It's been a really busy show. Another one coming up with Petri Hoskin of the other side of the news. Lovely to see you, Petri.
And you. Yeah, we're going to be talking about the Burnham bounce and whether he should call a general election.
No.
I agree. But, and I don't think he will. But
No.
there are some suggestions that this is the golden moment for him. We'll also be looking at whether he's actually talked himself into a really awkward place at the moment, politically speaking, over the sentence reviews and all of that as well.
I think legally they're in huge trouble.
I think he's...
I think it's going to be if they start releasing people and not applying the law to everybody, you're going to get judicial review, you're going to get legal cases,
it's a nightmare.
and you know the taxpayer's going to be paying
Absolutely.
and reaping the whirlwind of that.
Absolutely, and I just don't know why he's done it in this way. It shows a distinct lack of experience, really. So we're looking at that. British energy consumers have paid over £1 billion this year to turn off wind turbines. I mean, you just couldn't make this stuff up.
It's a load of hot air.
It's a load of hot air, but we're not able to